Welcome back, everybody. Episode 13, New World Fantasy Football. Here with my main man, Paul. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing good, man. Hello to the people. It's been a long week, but a good week.
Yeah, tell me about it. You recently celebrated a very special event.
I did. And not 4th of July. I am 33 years young as of yesterday. 2 days ago, actually. My weekend is blurring together here. It was good, man. Had some family and friends. We had dinner at Texas Day. It was a perfect, chill little celebration for an old man like myself. So that was cool. I also, on a steak overload, I ended up paying up our bet from the playoffs, where you got a steak dinner off me. So tell the people about that.
Well, first off, I'll say you're 33, so I'm cutting you from my dynasty roster. Yeah, that was a first time you actually introduced me to this amazing steak place in Orlando called Linda's, which I never knew about. And I got a filet, and it was fantastic. Everything there was awesome. And I look forward to winning again this upcoming year so that you can take me there again.
Yeah, well, when I win this year, we'll definitely make sure that we make a reservation at Linda's because we don't want to wait 2 damn hours again. But it's delicious, man. One of the it's not a best kept secret because it's always busy, but I feel like it's unknown on the national scale. Like everybody knows, like the Roots Chris of the world and
Yeah.
whatever, Capitol Grill and like these places that
Right. Don't even dare take me to Outback. I won't go.
That's disrespectful. I wouldn't do that. But no, it's solid, and it's still got that old timey vibe, right? Like you walk in, and it's almost like you take a time machine back to like the 50s and 60s, and this place was in the heyday. So it's a cool spot. I was actually honestly not even that mad to have to pay up on the bet because I do just love that place that much. But I'm definitely looking forward to this next bet because free steak tastes better than paid steak. I will say that.
So a good reason why I think it was also so good. I had that euphoria of victory that also went into the meal. So, and we looked great. We looked like quite the couple with the wine we got and all the wine. And it was good. It was good. But
definitely, we definitely could have played that aspect of it up. It is 2023. Nobody can really say anything about that, but it was funny for that reason. We left the ladies at home.
I'll say it's America. People could say whatever they want, but we can still do whatever we want as long as it's not against the law. So, speaking of America, man, I just want to promote this brand. Our sponsor for today, Life and Liberty. It's a clothing brand made for Americans, by an American. Yes, sir. Got the matching hats on right now. Actually, if you look closer, I don't know if you can really see on mine, but it's like a bunch of choppers.
Yeah,
like jets and stuff. Pretty awesome design. I didn't even know that was the case until he gave us these hats. So yeah, check it out. I'll put a link in the description to the website. Life and Liberty. The T is TEE on the end. And for t-shirts, but a really cool design. It's super comfortable. Hat's comfortable. Trucker hat. I love it. And yeah, man, it's something that I definitely am going to be wearing out more because I'm a proud American and solid brand. So check that out. Link in the description. And I'll see about some promo codes. I was asking him. We'll see if we can get some of those. But
for sure. Support our boy Jamori. He makes good stuff.
He does. And he's a great guy. Air Force. He's an airman. I guess you call it an airman. I don't know.
I think that's the terminology, but that's the limit of my knowledge regarding our services.
I respect what they do, and I respect the man as an individual, and I respect his brand. So, yeah, man. So just today, we're gonna be double timing it now because holy crap, the Hall of Fame game is less than a month away. It's August 3rd. Now, yes, it's the Hall of Fame game. It's the Hall of Fame game. I mean, it's nice to see a bunch of practice squad players putting on real NFL jerseys on a field that a legit football field and not a practice field. I guess it kind of is a glorified practice field in Canton, Ohio. Whatever. It's a freaking football game with NFL jerseys. I'm going to be excited, and then it's going to start. But it's not that far away.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of life stuff going on, and we do need to double up the episodes because the season is right around the corner, and we got more content to get to. It's amazing how long the off season is, but it still finds a way to sneak up on you.
It's crazy, man.
I don't watch the Hall of Fame game, but it is a line of demarcation on my calendar. Like, as soon as that game happens, I'm like, oh shit, this is real.
Yeah.
And that's when I start getting the, like, I wouldn't say that I have like a full on Chubb for fantasy yet at that point. But my loins begin stirring for fantasy.
Yes, that's
at that point. I'm still flaccid, just to be honest.
I was thinking the word loins was going to have to be in there at somewhere. Like, that was going to be my analogy. Just a bit of a stirring in the loins of the blood starting to flow.
It's just teasing a little bit. It's just teasing. Like, it's like, it's like, you sit down, with your girl, you're watching a movie, whatever. She's like snuggling up closer to you, and you're like, something gonna happen. So we're at that stage when the Hall of Fame game goes on.
Right. So, and then we've got the Jets and the Browns. So you should be really, really excited for that. But does that mean Zach Wilson's going to start?
He should. I'm not sure if they're going to do that to him, but I definitely think he should. And I, for one, will not panic anymore about seeing certain players at the Hall of Fame game. I think that
we learned our lesson.
Everything that happened which, to be honest, like the Josh Jacobs thing was weird. I think that's just homeboy, the coach, whose name escapes me right now. What is that loser's name?
McDaniels?
McDaniels. Like, I think that was literally just him being weird, throwing his RB1 out there. I don't think that a lot of other coaches will do that. But like, if we see a fantasy contributor play in that game, let's not Wall Street panic on him and tank his stock. Yeah,
for sure. And that was such an odd thing, which is why it threw us for a loop. So I doubt it will happen again. But we overreacted to it as a community for sure.
Yeah.
So just to kind of just to go over the the overview of what we're gonna do. We're gonna start with for today. We're gonna start the AFC South. Probably take a little break. And then we'll go and reset, go into the West, just because it's going to be a lot of content. So that's how we'll go about it. Maybe I'll make it into 2 episodes. I'm not exactly sure. Probably not. But, dude, let's get started on this, man. What are your thoughts? So starting with the South, Texans, man, came in last place. They made a lot of changes to their roster at some pretty important positions. So, really the most important position, as you know. So just, what's your general thoughts on what the Texans are going to look like this year?
Yeah, so, I mean, short story, they're going to be better. I think it's hard to be worse, right, than they were last year. I think CJ has talent. I don't think he's going to translate to the league as fast as maybe I think Bryce will. But he's going to be an upgrade over Mills, and they still have Dame Pierce, who I really like, and is a boon to their offense regardless. Their receiving room, I think, is a little underwhelming still. I mean, we got Rob Woods, John Mechie, right, and Nico Collins, and so I don't know if that's really going to like elevate the quarterback play of a rookie on a super level. So put a bow on that. I think they're going to be better, and I think that the offense is going to be at least decent enough to support Dame Pierce having a year 2 jump, which I am kind of excited about. But in terms of like where they land in the division, like, man, they're going to be battling with the Titans and the Colts for who's sucking the most. This division feels pretty easy for me to call. Like, the Jags have a amazing opportunity right now to take this division and run with it for the next several years. It just so happens that they got their franchise quarterback at the same time that everybody else in the division for the 2 years prior blew it up. So I think that they're really well positioned there. Not to jump ahead, but just that's my general feelings about the division.
True. And yeah, I would say I mostly agree with that. Yeah, I don't think CJ is going to wow anybody year 1. I think there's a good chance he doesn't wow us ever. I think he's going to be a mid-tier QB at his peak. It's not saying anything bad. The dude can be a solid NFL QB. There's nothing wrong with that. I think fantasy-wise, we'll just stay with this season. I don't want to project this whole career. But yeah, this season I think he's going to be pretty much a waiver wire guy. Maybe you throw him in on a good matchup if you need a QB that week. But I don't see the Texans offense really jumping off the page at you. Although I will say, I do believe there's value. You didn't mention the man, the myth, the white legend, Dalton Schultz. He is on that team. He just switched from one city in Texas to the next.
Over there.
So, I mean, he's not bad. He's just a solid all-around tight end. He probably lacks in the blocking department, but we don't care too much about that in fantasy. So even though that's what keeps them on the field, I do feel like he's going to be out there a good bit, and he'll probably be a good security blanket for CJ in year 1. So, maybe you get some value there if you kind of punt the tight end position. I will say a guy I do like on the offense that I don't think is getting enough attention is Nico Collins. I think as of now, he kind of is their de facto 1. I can't say that. I mean, you might argue that that's Robert Woods, but Robert Woods, to me, he's a good player. He's past his prime, and he's not – there's a reason why you got to give him nicknames. I mean, names matter, and Robert Woods is just not an exciting name. And it's hard to get excited for a guy that's
he has an exciting player.
He's never really been too exciting. He's been a fantasy contributor in the past, but I think he is beyond that point now where he's going to be somebody worth rostering. I think he's a back of the roster type player. He's one of the guys that's going to be floating around and dropped and picked up and dropped and picked up possibly. I think Nico Collins going into his 3rd year, he was a 3rd-round pick by the Texans. I think he has a big opportunity. He's 6'4". He's got a pretty solid athletic score. He's not in the Calvin Johnson range or anything like that, but he's pretty athletic for his size. That, to me, he could be a good, fade route target in the red zone. Like, I think that Nico Collins, they're going to score enough points to support one guy, in my opinion, that goes beyond, Damian Pierce. And also, Devin Singletary's on that team now. He's a thorn in the side of Damian Pierce at this point. I do feel like they brought him in to be kind of the yin and yang for that offense, and I think they're going to use both backs.
Well, so, I think Singletary is like yin and yang is a good terminology there, because I think he just runs differently. Dame seems to run very up and down, or
north and south. I know what you mean.
North and south is what I'm going to say with that. Singletary's always been, I kind of like, as much as I tried to make him a thing for 3 years and continuously drafted him off the Bills, like, he's fine. I just don't think that he's ever going to be anything other than, what he was on the Bills.
Yeah.
And probably less than that in his role and on a worse team in Houston. Like, he's fine. I don't think he's ever going to challenge Dame Pierce for being the bell cow back. I think he's just kind of a change of pace guy.
It's understandable, and it's also funny that, you basically forgot he's on the team, because it's not that you were chasing Devin Singletary. You were chasing insert Bills running back here.
Yeah.
And it's understandable. People are doing the same thing with the Chiefs.
Ace next.
James Cook. So yeah, it makes sense. It's understandable. I think we also tend to forget, because honestly, unless you live in Texas or you are a Texans fan, we were not paying attention to the Texans much last year. They were kind of like, all right, you have Dame Pierce. Cool. That was a good value pick for you. After that, like, what are we doing?
Land. It was a wasteland for fans.
I mean, you had Brandon Cooks, who was like pretending to be a receiver out there for many weeks and had like one good game. And funny enough, he switched spots with Dalton Schultz because he went to the Cowboys. But yeah, they were just disappointing team. I think they're going to be frustrating. I think the receiver room is going to be a bit nebulous. We'll see. John Mechie, he could surprise people. So could Robert Woods, and be a good, continue to be the possession guy that he's been throughout his career. And for full PPR leagues, he might be all right. But it's just one of those situations where I'm pretty much staying away from that entire team. Like, yeah. I would take Nico Collins in the double-digit rounds, 10th, 11th round, if he's sitting there, and hope for the best. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not in a rush to draft Dameon Pierce. He was a value for me last year, which was good. It worked out. Thank God I had him on my team, because it was rough with JT not being all that great. But yeah,
I want to like wrap this up there, because I think you've done a great job of talking about the fringe fantasy performers that will probably be on this team. Because again, like Dalton Schultz, are there even 12 good tight end, right? Like I certainly think that he has a chance to be a top 12 guy, probably like anybody else, right? But I think Dame Pierce is the guy that I think the fantasy conversation here kind of begins and ends with, because he was an exciting player last year. I think people felt really good about his running style and felt like they really found something there. Like, okay, you said you're not going to be too excited about drafting him, but as of right now, he's kind of falling in that range, that tier where, you got Miles Sanders, you got Rashad White, Alex Madison, DeAndre Swift. Like, look, these tiers are going to change probably 100 times between now and draft, but if that's where he falls, how do you think he compares to those level of players to you?
So yeah, based off the names you said in that ADP range, I don't really want to deal with Eagles running backs this year, so DeAndre Swift is kind of out for me. Plus, he's constantly injured. I'd rather have Miles Sanders. I'd rather have Madison. And what was the other name you said in there?
Another example. I'll give you a new name, because Rashad White is there too, but I'll throw another one.
I like White too.
J.K. Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins is probably at the top of that list for me. The reason being is I see the path for those guys, besides DeAndre Swift, for them to really break into that high-end RB2 area. Like, it's a possibility for those guys. You're taking your shot on those guys becoming that. For Dameon Pierce, I just feel like his season last year was, we're even looking at it through rose-colored glasses a bit. Because while he was solid, the offense just sucked. And he was it. He was the offense, which sounds great for fantasy, but when the offense was really bad, he just didn't really deliver, and he doesn't catch the ball either. So That's why they brought, a kind of a scat back guy like Devin Singletary, who's not even that good of a pass catcher, but he gets that. He also gets that label, even though he's not that good at it. They used Rex Burkhead more than we even want to realize last year. I mean, go look at Rex Burkhead's stats. Like, he was involved because he's a good pass catching back, which they know they don't have that in Dameon Pierce. So he's so limited where it's like, I can see Miles Sanders breaking into that, even though the Eagles didn't use him that much in that. Madison, I don't know. I don't really know. I haven't seen him play enough. He kind of is just, he takes over. Throughout his career, he's like, all right, we're going to pretend that you're Dalvin Cook this week because you're the best running back we have left, and you're good. You're a quality running back. So we're just going to give you 25 touches a game, and you're going to perform. Dobbins has a possibility with that Ravens offense that should be better Dobbins to me is the guy in that list that has a chance of becoming that, breaking into that RB1, that low-end RB1 category. But anyways, that's going too far off.
Are excited about Dobbins now being like a full season plus away from that injury, and I apologize, my dog chose this exact moment to scratch her collar. So
I didn't even notice it. But yeah, man, not to get too far off topic. Like, Dameon Pierce in a vacuum is a good running back. He's going to be held back by his offense, I think. And if I have him, let's put it this way. If I'm putting together my roster construction and he's my RB3, I'm happy with it. If it falls in the way that he's drafted as my RB2, I am not going to be super excited looking at my roster.
Well, you better have some tasty receivers in that case. You better have gone with a different build.
In that case, if he ends up as your RB2 on your, at least in your draft, he may not end up your RB2 at the end of the year, probably not. But it's because you took Mahomes, Hurts, Lamar Jackson, or you took Kelsey, Mark Andrews, whatever. You get the point. That is the build that you're taking the hit on running back or maybe receiver. Yeah. So you get what I mean.
And so, by that attitude, and we'll move on right after this, he's the kind of player, like, I think that an easy way to preface how we're going to talk, I think, about a lot of these players is there is no player that we don't want to have on our teams, but if we're lower on them than consensus, the likelihood is that we won't have them on our team. So, because kind of like what you're saying is not comfortable taking him in like the 4th round, but if he somehow falls 5 or 6, probably going to take him, probably not going to happen. So, I think that a lot of times when we talk about these players, like, it's easy to look at it like, oh, they just hate this player, they'll never have that player on their team. It's just, at this current ADP price, probably a little rich for our bloods.
He's slightly upgraded if you play in a non-PPR league, which if you do, where are you in your life? Like, get into at least a half PPR. I think that's the just right. The porridge. This one's too hot. This one's too cold. This one's just right. I do feel that's half PPR. That's a whole other topic, but for people out there not.
The 90s call, they want their fantasy league back.
Yeah. Running back. The first 2 rounds was like 15 running backs back in those days.
For sure, dude. All right, we spent
the Colts, man. You're one of your teams, man.
Yes.
The Colts.
I'll keep it relatively quick. Like, I think that anybody that's listened to any of the previous episodes has heard some Colts takes at least sprinkled in there. Very briefly recap. I think that A-Rich is going to have sneaky value in fantasy because of what he projects to do on the ground. I am going to caution people not to go out and spend a crazy premium on him because I'm really excited about him as a quarterback 2 seasons from now. I'm not really excited about him as a quarterback this season. I just think it's going to be a really rude jump. He had trouble getting above like the 60% completion line in college. I will give him a little bit of grace there, right? I don't think Florida had the best weapons all the time. I don't think their scheme was particularly awesome. But when somebody is already struggling at the college level with their accuracy, I feel like it just would be too much to expect for the young man to be more accurate right away at the NFL level. I think he's going to take a couple seasons to kind of learn everything. And honestly, everything that I'm hearing from them is I think that they're going to build a scheme that kind of protects him quite a bit on that front and is going to be a little more vanilla from that perspective. So, Rich, if he's going to be a threat for, 80 and a score on the ground at any time. So I think he has some fantasy value himself. Unfortunately, I think he nerfs some of the fantasy value of the receivers that I do kind of like, right? So Alec Pierce, incoming rookie last season, had some flashes. I think he projects as kind of like their take the top off the defense type of receiver. Pittman is still the number one, and if you're targeting any receiver on this team, he's the guy to look at. He's not a perfect player by any means, in terms of his catch percentage and everything that way, but he's a big body, talented receiver that has a knack for getting open. So I think in terms of valuable receptions, he probably leads the team. They have Isaiah McKenzie with the rookie that they drafted, Josh Downs, backing him up. I expect Josh to become their slot receiver by the back half of the season. I just don't think Isaiah is really that great. I think Buffalo moved on from him for that reason. The offensive line, we've spent a lot of time talking about. They had a bad season, but the names on that offensive line are good. Really, it hasn't been an elite O-line ever since Costanzo really retired, because that left tackle position still leaves a lot to be desired. But middle of the O-line is great. Q Nelson, Ryan Kelly, they always hold it down from that perspective. So I want to shift gears here. I've done a lot of talking. I want you to tell me a little bit about how you feel about JT being the JT owner last year and riding that roller coaster and having a upcoming decision with JT.
So, I've been talking to JT a little bit, and he just was hurt all year. It was a frustrating season. He struggled to find any space to run and going against stacked boxes all year. This year, he says he feels a lot more confident because he knows that Richardson is going to open up the running game for him. The only thing that he was saying is like, don't get too pissed off when Richardson is the one that runs the ball in towards the goal line, because that's bound to happen. I think it's going to be a much more efficient year for JT, but Anthony Richardson is kind of his double-edged sword. He's going to open up the offense with the run game, but he's also going to vulture them. So I think the days of 2021 JT are no longer there. But he's a fine first-round pick. Don't take him above McCaffrey. Don't take him above Eckler. But right there, he's fine to take if that's how you feel about it. And if you trust the talent, I think he's going to have a very good year. He's not going to be 2021 JT. That's it.
Yeah, so it's hard to replicate because he really exploded onto the scene that year, and almost carried my awful fantasy team, through the through the playoffs with his heroics, but I just couldn't get the team around him. I think that was the year that I missed and whiffed on 5 straight receivers in the draft.
You had a hodgepodge of like underperforming guys.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, like.
Oh yeah, it was
Deontay Johnson or
Johnson.
Yeah. It happens. I mean, it sucks. It's bad luck, but it happens. So, excuse me. I think that Richardson, I agree with you completely on Richardson. He is what we saw at Florida. I'm not really going to give guys any kind of credit or grace in college. If you're missing your guys against college DBs, you're not going to freaking do better against NFL DBs. I don't care who your receivers are. I don't care. What we saw from AR was that he's an inconsistent passer. He's got all the talent in the world. He's a carbon copy to me of what Josh Allen was, except maybe, Richardson's probably more athletic, but like Allen is a fantastic athlete in his own right. So, dude,
well, being
that's what I'm saying.
Of Josh Allen isn't so bad.
Huh?
I said being a carbon copy of Josh Allen isn't so bad. I
just mean as a prospect. It's going to be a question of like, well, he doesn't have a Brian Dable there to be the QB whisperer. I don't know if the Colts have that guy on the staff. I think he's going to need a really good mentor.
Steichen can be that guy because of what he supposedly did with Jalen Hurts. But here's the deal, man. Like, dude, whatever. Like, yes, like Dable is a great offensive mind, and honestly, I think Steichen probably is too. But it's going to come down to the work and the ability of that young man to learn and to process the game. Like, that's really what it's going to come down to. Like, Dable probably has had a bunch of quarterbacks outside of Josh Allen that you never heard about that totally suck, right? And
sure, but he's
had
a history. He's had a track record of making the quarterbacks that he's been with better, even as an assistant coach. Dable has, and he helped Daniel Jones quite a lot too. I'm not okay. I don't want to talk about just Dable. That's not what I'm trying to get at here. What I'm trying to get at is I do think somebody like Anthony Richardson, with his inconsistencies and his like how unbalanced he throws the ball, and just he's got a lot of issues that when it looks good, holy crap, he could be the best quarterback in the league. But it looks really, really bad a lot. And that's gonna lead to a ton of frustration on that offense. If their running game isn't working, I think the Colts are going to look really bad. But I think there's going to be a ton of games where their running game looks amazing, and they're going to be fine. I would argue that Alec Pierce might even be a good beneficiary of that big arm, because I see Alec Pierce being a deep threat a lot more than I see Pittman. And I see Pittman as kind of that Michael Thomas in a way, kind of that big boundary guy that in breaking routes, and he wins on those a good amount. He doesn't get a ton of separation, but he doesn't necessarily need to. Michael Pittman's good. He'll still be the one. And I think Alec Pierce may have some value, but he's a waiver wire alert guy, or a flyer guy at the end of your draft, maybe depending on your format.
So before we wrap on the Colts, let's just I'm always looking to do this, right?
Do they have a tight end real quick? I know they do. Jelani Woods, he's an athletic guy. As you've said, Ballard, right? Is it Chris Ballard? He's a GM. What's his name? Yeah. He's a big-time traits guy, as you've said, and it's true. He picked Jelani Woods a few years ago for that reason. Or was it last year? He was a rookie last year, I believe.
Yeah, he was a rookie last year. So their tight end room is, just so you know, so like Jelani Woods probably is the one guy that I would say has fantasy upside. Yeah. Mo Alley Cox, we know who he is at this point. He can be a big target in the red zone, but like truthfully, man, like people that don't watch the team think that Mo Alley Cox is this unlockable asset. He's not much of a route runner, and he doesn't really have great hands. So basically, he has to be freed up in the end zone by himself to catch a touchdown, which he will sometimes. But Mo's a huge body that's in there to block. Truthfully, that's his role.
Yeah.
So
that's your typical tight end. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, say that again. My bad.
Jelani hasn't shown a lot yet, but he projects to be the guy that if there's going to be a guy, he would be the guy.
So Jelani Woods, just, it's good time to talk about him because we're talking about the Colts. He, to me, is one of those few players that I would still consider a true sleeper. I've talked about this to death. I hate when people are like, this guy's a sleeper. He's a 6th-round pick. Not a freaking sleeper. Jelani Woods is not getting picked.
Right.
He was a rookie tight end last year on a bad offense. I mean, Sam Ehlinger and Matt Ryan sucked ass, to say the least. The athletic ability hasn't went away.
No.
He's a year into the NFL, learning the game on that level. With his athleticism, I'm not going to make a projection, but I'm just saying keep your eye on him.
Yeah.
Keep your eye on him. He's got a chance to surprise, especially because tight ends tend to be security blankets for young quarterbacks. And if he turns some of these shorter receptions into longer gains, people are going to open their eyes. So just, keep your radar up for Jelani Woods. I think he's an intriguing player for sure.
So before we finish up on and thank you for bringing up tight ends, because honestly, I need to lean on you for that.
You hate tight ends, I know.
I really do and they're just not in my thought process at all. So thank you for keeping me honest on that. But before we wrap, I want to play a little association game here so we can actually put context around how we feel around these players. So we'll start with JT. Saquon or JT?
I'm going with JT.
Okay. Bijan Robinson or JT?
Bijan. I think the offense is just like perfectly fit for what they want to do for him.
Interesting. That's an interesting one. I think I would have JT over Bijan. I love Bijan, and I love the fact that he's an electric rookie, but I think their offenses are fairly similar in terms of how I feel about how many touchdowns they're going to have to go around. I think they're both going to be probably pretty bad.
Atlanta has a top 5 O-line too.
Yeah, they have a really good line, and so they're built to run the ball. So I think that's close.
And their coach really wants to just feature the run game.
I think that's close. I think that's really close.
It's close, but me personally, I would slightly lean Bijan, and I'm not mad about drafting JT in any way.
Yeah.
But I think if they're both sitting there in round 1 and I'm like, okay, I have this decision of Bijan, JT, Saquon. My heart says Saquon. My head says JT, and my balls say Bijan. And I always listen to my balls. So there you go.
Well, that's why you have a kid. All right. So Pittman. Okay. Pittman or Lockett?
Lockett. Give me the deep routes.
Okay.
On a guy who's always produced. I mean, I've hated him forever because he always burns me, but that's why I have to love him now.
Pittman or Drake London?
That one's tough. Well, if I don't have Bijan on my team already, I'd probably go Drake.
Okay.
If I do, I'll switch to Pittman.
Pittman or Christian Watson?
Give me Pittman. Watson to me is a little scary. I don't know. I'm not confident in Jordan Love.
Okay. So here's a really interesting one that I think is, I think that would be a tough decision for me. Pittman or DJ Moore?
I think DJ Moore is a better receiver. I'll go DJ because I trust that Fields' passing will be more developed at this point than Richardson.
Yeah, I have a tendency to agree with that, which is, dude, that's for as much as I love Pittman and I'm a fan of him, that's kind of a depressing range, honestly, to be in. But that being said, he is a guy that could have a pre-draft drop. He could have enough of a drop to go beyond that, like you said, that Christian Watson level, and still be a value. Because honestly, I think he's still going to be a not sexy PPR machine. I think he's going to catch a ton of balls.
Mm-hmm.
It won't always be efficient. It won't always be pretty. But like, drafting him as like a wide receiver 3, I think he'd be fine. So yeah.
That's the range you want to draft him on a balanced roster. If you get him as your wide receiver 3, you're not upset about it. I don't think you should be upset about it.
Okay.
I think that's fine. And yeah, because he's going to provide that. I think he should provide that safe floor.
Last question on the Colts. Anthony Richardson will finish the year as a top 12 quarterback in fantasy, yes or no?
I'm going to say no, but it's close. I think Richardson's going to have a lot of peak and valley games. I think the valley is going to be like single-digit points, where a defense just does a great job containing him. And, we're also just not sure, like, how much are they really going to design runs for him?
Yeah,
if that's even going to matter, because maybe he just has that Lamar Jackson feature where he just finds the freaking spot and he runs and he does great with it. He could have that too. It takes more than speed. It takes an awareness.
Yeah. No, that is all true, and that's why I will say this. I think that he has a chance because of just how scoring works in fantasy. I think he has a chance to break the top 12 in a season-long scoring. But in terms of consistency, is he going to be a top 12 quarterback that you keep on your team all the time? No, I don't think so. I agree with you. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs. But I think at the end of the year, you're going to be surprised. Be like, oh, damn, this dude was 11th in fantasy? What the heck?
Yeah, I can see him sneaking into that 11-12 range if he's doing a good job, just being efficient, and he's getting a lot of carries. Should be real, getting a lot of carries. I will guess, as of right now, that he ends up, I want to say 13 or 14, because I think he can be top 15 fantasy, but I don't see him breaking it. That's where I have him, 13 or 14. He's right there for me.
Well, thank you for letting me be a homer and spend a lot of time on my Colts. That's probably more time than they really deserve from a fantasy perspective. Now let's talk about an even less fun team, Tennessee.
We'll be quick about Tennessee.
Give me your thoughts there.
So Tennessee, they're kind of right now they're an open and shut case for me. DeAndre Hopkins is in the contention of being there. Okay, we're not going there. He's not on that team. It's still, as much as Henry's stock keeps going like this, and I know that we are both like, man, how is this guy not broken down yet? He'll be 30 this year. I'm not all that concerned about it. He had the foot problem a couple years ago, came back. Top of your head, if you don't know already, how many total yards do you think he had last year? In the range.
Dude, I mean, I'll bet you he had close to like 1,200.
I don't remember. I'm talking about receiving and rushing. I don't know if you.
Oh, total yards. Yeah. He did catch the ball a decent amount, or by his standards.
Yeah, for Derrick Henry, yeah.
Did he get to 13?
I'll just tell you.
Yeah.
He had, I don't know the exact number. Actually, I have it written down because I wanted to talk about
I'll look it up.
I got it right here. He had a total of rushing and receiving combined of 1,936 yards.
Shut up.
Yep. And he had 13 touchdowns. They were all rushing. How is this guy falling? Because based on the offseason, he is still the focal point of the team.
He had his best receiving year ever.
His best receiving year. Now, that contributed a little bit, but he only got sub 400 yards, but still decent for just receiving. He got like 396 receiving yards, right? So, or 398, whatever. It's close enough. About 400 receiving yards. And he rushed for roughly 1,500 yards, right? So, and he got 13 touchdowns. Dude.
Yeah. I mean, his volume is incredible because his yards per attempt, and honestly, ever since Tennessee just kind of fell off a cliff as a team last year.
Towards the end of last year. Mm-hmm.
His efficiency has been down, but they feed this man. They feed him.
And Vrabel loves him. Vrabel wants the offense to run through him. What did they do in free agency or / the draft to make you think they're not still running the team through Derrick Henry?
Yeah, they
drafted a running back in the 4th, 5th round.
Yeah, I was going to say they drafted kind of a back style of guy on day 2, so nothing too terrifying.
Yeah, it's not anything that's really going to threaten him majorly. Sure, do I think the Titans want to lower his workload? Definitely. He's a 30-year-old running back with a ton of miles. I don't know if it's going to really matter all that much. He's kind of getting drafted right now as the RB5 or 6.
Yeah, he's after the JT Bijan range we just talked about.
Yeah, so let's just go over him, right? You've got McCaffrey, Eckler, some mixture of Bijan, Saquon, JT, and Nick Chubb. So if he's RB7 and he gets you 1,600 total yards, let's just say, and 13 to 14 touchdowns, I feel like that's going to be better than Saquon Barkley. I do.
Well, I think what they're baking into his ADP is, I think, the same thing that I've been wrong about every single year, except for this actually this past year when he got hurt, of course, was the first year that I was like, you know what, you just in Derek I trust. I'm done with talking about this man's downfall when all he does is just produce monster numbers. And Andrew, the touchdowns are always going to be there.
He's the guy. I mean, really. And then you've got, so let's get off Derrick Henry, right? We get it. Derrick Henry's still a beast, and he's probably being undervalued slightly.
Because everybody's preying on the drop, or everybody's looking at it as he's 30.
Nobody wants to be the one caught holding the bag, and that's understandable. But I think we're kind of going to know, when that starts happening, I think we're going to know. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's here just yet. So the Titans, their offense. All right, Ryan Tannehill is he's Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah,
he'll have a couple games that are nice.
Will Levis is mini Ryan Tannehill,
right? So you think they're going to start Will Levis right away?
No, I don't think so. I honestly, the crazier part is, I think he's even less NFL ready than Richardson is.
Yeah, there's a good chance of that.
So that's the craziest part to me, is that he's older than Richardson, and I think actually worse in terms of a prospect. So no, I think he sits for a good portion of next year. I think he will take over at some point. Basically when the division title is out of reach, and Vrabel stops being high T and realizes that they have to tank. And probably 10 games into the season, I think Will Levis starts.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's a fair analysis of it. I think a lot of it's going to come down to just how they look and how he looks in the preseason.
Yeah.
That's
fair.
And I feel the same way with what you're saying about just sorry to go back. I meant to make this point, but Richardson is a lot's going to hinge on his if he has a few big plays in preseason, he'll move up a good amount because people want to be excited about him. But anyways, yeah, Will Levis, man, I still think it's going to be Tannehill to start the year. And Tannehill's just never really been able to truly support a good consistent passing game throughout his entire career. Like, he has a few good games, but okay, that leads me to Treylon Burks. And I like Treylon Burks as a talent. He's obviously a big dude, fast dude. He's gotten hurt a lot. He's got already. I believe he dealt with a concussion at some point last year. And then he got another injury in the mix, and kind of discouraging. But he is the only receiver that's really worth a damn over there. I mean, it's pretty much him, and the hype train is picking up big time for Okonkwo.
Yeah.
And then, okay, you got another second-year receiver in Kyle Phillips. Like, okay, well, I don't really see him being a factor much in fantasy, Akine, Westbrook Akine is like, he's a flyer guy, kind of like a Mac Hollins last year, where he's kind of that second to third receiver, and he'll be
Kyle Phillips wishes he was as cool as Hunter Renfrow.
Pretty much. I think Kyle Phillips is a bit bigger, but like, I don't see him as a slot only guy like Hunter Renfrow is.
I think for me, at tight end, you can get Chiggy with it if you want to.
Yeah.
Sure. Nice. And at receiver, to me, it's completely fair to take the flyer on Trey Burks because he showed talent.
Sure.
And he's a year 2 receiver, which, obviously, the history around that.
Yeah. And I just real quick, I want to say something about that. Not every, like, spoiler alert, not every year 2 guy turns into a beast. Like, I know that's the popular line right now. The freaking Bart Simpson, say the line, year 2 receiver. Like, okay, I get it. That is the age you're targeting, right? Year 2, maybe year 3. But goddamn, not every single one is going to be in a position to go off. So that's how they get talked about sometimes. So anyways, by the way, Kyle Phillips is a second-year receiver. Alex Pierce, second-year receiver.
Yeah.
So anyways, continue. I'm sorry. I had to get that out.
Absolutely. It becomes a meme of itself. So let's do it like we've been doing it. Let's play that name game. Trey Burks or Mike Evans?
I want Mike Evans. He's done it every year. Hasn't he gotten 1,000 yards every single year of his career?
I think he might have missed. Actually, no.
I think he got it.
He owns the record. I think it's 9 straight years.
I'll look it up right now. I'm on Pro Football Reference. Let's see. Mike Evans, last year, 11-24.
Yep.
With a washed up Brady.
And so, look, Mike Evans gets nerfed, right? Because he's going to be looking at, God, why can't I?
Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield.
Right. I don't know why I couldn't think of Baker's name for some reason. Sorry, Baker. Yeah. So I think that I would definitely go with Mike because he is a proven commodity. Obviously, the quarterback situation isn't great, but he's also done it with not great quarterbacks too.
It's still Ryan Tannehill or Will Levis on the other side.
Yeah, and right, and you're looking at Trey Burks against a Hall of Famer. So I'm gonna take that guy, even though he's a little older. All right, so Trey Burks or Hollywood.
I would
with a shaky quarterback situation.
That one's very close for me, but I'm gonna take Hollywood for the long-term investment because I think Kyler will be back at some point, and that's his boy. He is going to target him quite a lot. So
okay.
Yeah, I like the explosive potential of Marquise Brown better.
Okay. And I have one more for you. 2 second-year receivers, 2 kind of injury-shortened campaigns, and I think they have pretty similar quarterback situations, so it's going to be fun for me. Trey Burks or Jahan Dotson?
I want Trey. I want Burks, Traylon Burks, because I like Jahan, but I don't think he has a chance to be the number one guy on his team.
Still Terry.
Yeah, Terry's really freaking good. He just plays for Washington, unfortunately. Yeah. So yeah, give me Trey Burks in that situation.
Yeah. That's close. Just to be different, I'll go with Jahan because I think the kind of targets he would get, the big booms, I like. Yeah, that's shaving the line for me. So I'll go with Jahan Dotson just because I don't know. Just because
Jahan Dotson was a first round pick in his own right too.
Yeah,
people forget that because he was buried under a lot of other highly picked receivers.
Right.
You had Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Tennessee. I think we're good there. I guess
there's not much else to say. I think about Tennessee. It's like it's pretty much Burks, Henry, and that's it.
So I guess just to we don't have to play the association game with Derrick Henry, but I guess just your gut feeling. Is this the year that everybody's been waiting for where Derrick Henry comes back down and becomes a human? Or does he just keep doing Derrick Henry manimal things for all of 2023?
I'm on the camp that Derrick Henry is built to last. I think he's going to be just fine. I really do. And I think when you're picking a RB1, you really need a guy that's going to win you weeks. That is Derrick Henry. He gets the 202 games.
Yeah.
Like he will have those games.
Yeah.
So
and
I still like Derrick Henry.
First round running backs get hurt a lot more than we like to pretend they do. So if you're worried about injuries, guess what, player? You got to worry about injuries with all these guys.
Just run the running back position, man. It is what it is. So, man, let's talk about a fun team.
Yes, unfortunately, a very fun team.
That doesn't have should be fully cleansed of all Urban Meyer ass grabbing. The Jacksonville Jaguars. What are your thoughts, man?
Well,
what are your thoughts on just that?
For my boy Bobby, I'm not a fan of your team, but I am a fan of you. Congrats on already winning the division.
Right. We love Bobby, and I'm pretty indifferent about that entire division, to be honest. I don't really care about any of those teams. So I guess the Jags, because I lived in Florida and I have a few friends who are Jags fans, so whatever. Mm-hmm. But anyways, dude, just give me your thoughts on them, man. Because they're an interesting team for sure. In real life and in fantasy.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think they've done a really good job of surrounding Trev Lawrence. I mean, yes, they paid the Jax tax, right? They paid a lot of money to bring in Christian Kirk, to bring in Evan Ingram, overpaid a couple other people along the lines. I think people started to kill them for that, but then when you zoom out and you look at it as a whole, it really doesn't matter, right? Because they're not paying their franchise quarterback yet, and that's really where the roster building gets hard. You saw this with Philly, right? Philly has had the opportunity to just absolutely murderously stack their team because they have a good quarterback on a rookie scale deal. So I'm very interested to see in a couple years how they're going to keep that team together while having to pay Trevor. But the reality is they're going to win the division because the rest of the division isn't very good, but also because Trev's that guy. He's, he didn't have a chance to prove it in his rookie season because Urban Meyer was so epically bad at coaching that he just poisoned that whole locker room. And
his weapons sucked
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
they were awful.
And then, and then last season, I think they didn't start out very well. I don't remember what their exact record was, but they didn't win a lot of games. But he still showed enough flashes to matter for fantasy. And we were like, oh man, Christian Kirk, like, okay, let's go. Like he had pretty much a, like wire to wire, pretty good season. I think
He had a good season.
Go ahead.
I said, yeah, I'm just agreeing with you that Christian Kirk had a good season for sure.
Yeah, and so I think Kirk is a guy to definitely look at. Again, Calvin Ridley's the wild card, right? And I think that how he looks in preseason and what his conditioning looks like, I think is going to determine whether or not I think people. I will pause here and let you jump in because I think people are assuming Calvin Ridley off the suspension is the new wide receiver 1. I'm curious how you feel about that.
I have a very strong opinion about that. And I will say Christian Kirk, just for the info's sake, 1,108. Damn good season.
That was a great season.
If he was your wide receiver 2, you were very, very happy with that. So I do not like Calvin Ridley this year. I do not think that he's getting wildly overdrafted, but I do think it's wild that his ADP for a guy who hasn't played in 2 years on a new team in a new location with a new coach and everything like that is going ahead of Christian Kirk, like I just said his stats.
Dude, he's in the tier with Debo and Chris God.
He's got no chemistry developed with Trevor Lawrence. Maybe that'll happen before in the preseason and training camp and all that. But we haven't seen it. And this is something I have a major issue with because it frustrates me and I'm guilty of this sometimes too, don't get me wrong, but people have these wild misconceptions. This is about life. This is about fantasy football especially. Like, we have this tendency to overrate the unknown. Like, it's great to have optimism, but we play a game where we're talking about probabilities. I have not seen players come back after a 2-year hiatus and dominate. I've never seen that. The probability to me that Calvin Ridley is going to be some rock star for the Jags, I don't buy it.
Remember how rock hard everyone was for Percy Harvin when he went to the Seahawks?
Yeah, and that was a major bust. And like at the same time, let me look at Calvin Ridley's history. He had one amazing season where the league didn't realize that Julio's starting to decline and this Calvin Ridley cat is pretty damn good. He reaped all the benefits that 1 year in Atlanta. And when I remember talking to people living in the Atlanta area when that transition was happening, when Julio left the Falcons.
Right.
And I said, it was around fantasy season, come close to this time. And I was talking to Falcons fans. They're Falcons fans, so, they're a little biased. That's understandable. But I was like, do you really think, and I didn't say this. This was a legit question. This wasn't a loaded question. I said, do you really think that Calvin Ridley can take over that wide receiver 1 spot and do well? And they said, without a doubt, yes, going to be great. He's awesome. I had my questions about it. And whether you want to use that red herring scapegoat of, well, he's mental problems. He didn't perform on the field, bro.
Well, that's all that matters for fantasy, right? Like, I do feel for the man. Like, I think he got crushed on that suspension. Like, come on, dude. Like, I get it. You're not supposed to bet on your teams or whatever, but like, this is a multimillionaire that was betting with like a couple $1,000s in a Bovada account. Like, I know people who make a lot less money and bet a lot more than that over the course of a year. So
yes, we do. Yes, we
do. I feel for the man on a human standpoint, but obviously all that matters in fantasy is results.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't have anything. I don't know Calvin Ridley at all. I don't know. He's probably a good dude. I really don't know. I think that what bothers me, and this is what happens too, I get frustrated about the misconception. It's not, and that it's circulating Calvin Ridley. It's not Calvin Ridley himself. I have no dislike for him. I get annoyed with the opinions that circulate him like he's going to be some all-star. I don't know about that. He could be one of the biggest busts at his ADP.
I agree. I agree completely. I feel like, so I will say this, putting aside fantasy, not signing, but trading for Calvin Ridley for peanuts, huge move for Jacksonville. Elevates Trev Lawrence. I think that they've needed somebody on the, Kirk lines up, kind of everywhere, but I think they needed kind of a more traditional outside receiver for him. So he fills a great role for them. He helps elevate Jacksonville's offense.
Yes.
We just both agree and feel the same. Please do not draft him ahead of Deebo Samuel. You will be kicking yourself and feeling like a moron. I don't see him being the target vacuum, 1,200 yards, threatening for 10 touchdowns guy that he did with Matt Ryan in, was it 21, I believe? Was his best?
Was it 2020? Maybe it's 2021. Whatever. Yeah.
It was a couple of years ago. Ryan fell off a cliff. He looks awful. Like, we saw what should have been a retired player playing for the Colts last year. So, yes, Trevor Lawrence is a much better quarterback than that. But, man, I am really scared taking a guy off that hiatus. What's going on with his mental? Do we know? Is he in a good place? I am so much more comfortable just running it back with Kirk. I know he's in shape. I know he's got a rapport with Trev Lawrence. I love this offense and want a piece of it. I'm going to take the guy at the better ADP because, to me, Ridley is, I think, a lot closer to, in my mind, the Michael Pittman range than he is to the
Samuel and
the wide receiver
range there. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, dude. So the Jags, they are a very fun team. I 100% agree. Calvin Ridley will help the team. I think he's getting way overrated in fantasy. We went over that. Trevor Lawrence, to me, he is the guy to target for the biggest breakout. When you have him going under guys like, you got Justin Fields, of course, we know his explosion potential. Justin Herbert, who else is in that range? Lamar Jackson. And then I don't know who's really going after Trevor Lawrence. Dak Prescott.
I actually think he's appropriately ranked. I think that look, this is just Fantasy Pros that I pulled up right now just for argument's sake.
Yeah.
He's in the bottom of the tier with Lamar, Joe, Justin, the two Justins, and himself.
Right.
And then he's above the Dak Prescotts, the Deshaun Watson, the Tuas, the Danny Dimes, Kirks of the world.
Sure.
I think that's fine. I think
that's fair of a ranking. I think he has a very good. Okay, let's put it this way. I think he has a chance to be the best value quarterback this year because the opportunity cost of Trevor Lawrence is nowhere near the same as Joe Burrow.
Right.
So, and I feel like Trevor Lawrence has a chance to be at that Joe Burrow level this year. He doesn't have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, no. But he's got a really solid group around him. We can't forget about Evan Ingram either. He had a really solid year. Evan Ingram was tight end 5 last year.
Yeah, well, and that's something that I would love your opinion on too, because yes, he was tight end 5. That was driven by a monster second half of the season. Well, not even second half. It was like a monster 5 or 6 games, which again, tight ends, it doesn't take that much
No.
to jump you into the top 5, but he was very good. How do you feel about that stretch of games weighed against, as a Giants fan, the majority of Evan Ingram's career where he was pretty inconsistent? How do you feel about that?
On a personal level, that's annoying because I'm like, why couldn't you do that for the Giants?
Or is Trevor just that guy? And
I think it's more of a he was necessary for the offense because Kirk's good. Christian Kirk is good. Zay Jones had a few moments throughout the year. And I think Evan Ingram was just heavily relied on. And he's a tough matchup because he's coming from that tight end spot. He's getting matched up on a lot of safeties and linebackers, and he's got speed. He's got plenty of speed. So get the ball in his hands. He just has to catch the damn thing. And, he does a good job after the catch. Oh, I like Evan Ingram as a tight end this year. I think he's another one. I think the combination of Trevor Lawrence and Evan Ingram are potentially really good values this season. So, yeah, but as a whole, the difference between Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence to me, okay, Trevor Lawrence being able to close that gap in fantasy to me is about, okay, does Trevor start using those legs, man? Do those legs become a bigger threat? Because he's pretty darn fast. He's a solid runner. That will make a big difference. And I think that he has a chance to put that into his repertoire this season where he's just running the show and moving that offense, and he uses his legs enough to where it bumps him up. That's what I'm thinking.
And dude, and by the way, again, this absolutely kills me to admit, as a fan of the Colts, Trevor Lawrence is a franchise quarterback. I have no longer any doubts of that. Now, is he going to win a Super Bowl? That's hard because you got to have the right team. You got to have the right situation. You got to have some breaks go your way. But I don't think there is any doubt whatsoever anymore that he's a franchise quarterback. So when you have that, you're going to have a good fantasy offense around it. So I want to play a few name games for the people with these Jags players because I think both of us are pretty much in agreement here, division winners, exciting team, up and coming team with a ton of fantasy value in the right spots, right? So, okay, let's go for it. Evan Ingram, I think a top 5 fantasy tight end is probably a little aggressive with some of the names that are there, but let's put his over-under at tight end 7 for the year. Over or under?
I have to think about that one.
Well, let me give you some names.
I like tight end 7 for him because, okay, so Kelsey, obviously, Mark Andrews.
Yep.
Hawkinson is in that range, which I think he's being a little overrated, but whatever. He's still ahead of Ingram.
In the range.
Yeah. Evan Ingram. You got George Kittle.
Yep.
Dallas. You got Dallas Goedert. And I think, and then Darren Waller, because I do believe that Darren Waller becomes the go-to guy for the Giants. He's the most talented receiver they have on the team. So,
So after that, here's the really question: what about him over Freiermuth?
Oh yeah, I'd rather have Ingram.
Oh wow, okay.
Because Freiermuth does not have the ability to break one tackle and make 25 extra yards after the catch.
Yeah, that's fair. So Ingram
and Trevor Lawrence is better than Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's talk. Or Kyle Pitts. Give me Evan Ingram.
Okay.
Because the offense, Kyle Pitts is a huge question mark because are they just gonna say screw it and line him up at receiver? Just do it. Stop trying to pretend this man's I know because his size, but dude, just imagine if Kyle Pitts just became.
He can't block for shit. So when they line him up at tight end, it is the ultimate it kind of hurts the team. It's a tell. It's an ultimate tell.
Let him just be Calvin Johnson-esque. Let him just be a huge receiver. Okay.
Yeah. And so that's awesome that like I had set that line randomly, but it sounds like we're pushing. Like 7 is the magic number.
Yeah, and Kyle Pitts is kind of that wild card in there. But before we move on, they do have running backs on this team.
They do. And you took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to do a little Travis Etienne talk and name game.
All right, so talk to me about Travis Etienne then.
Yeah, so God, I mean, it sounds really dumb to say this because I think most people do. Love him to death. Like he looks so good out there in terms of running with space. Everything about Travis Etienne, except for his health, was just as advertised when they drafted him. He's great with the ball in space. He has pass catching abilities. I think he kind of surprises people at his ability to run up the middle. Like I think he actually hits holes pretty good. Pause. But the other part that was advertised about his game that you can't really do anything about is the man is not a hammer. When he gets hit hard. And when he gets hit, he stops. I think that's kind of just, which by the way is like, okay, like not every running back is Adrian Peterson, right? Like there are different styles of running backs and different ways to be successful. He's probably not going to push many piles with his size and weight. But I like him a lot as a fantasy prospect. Obviously the health is always going to be a question mark with him, but I want a piece of that offense, and I think that he's been really productive in every opportunity that he's been given there. So yeah, I mean, thumbs up is the end of that.
Okay. So
but contextualize that for me. How do you feel like about him? Like where, kind of where his range is, like what the overall vibes around him are?
So for me, I'm going to have to sort of go ahead and agree with you there. ETN, I'm not concerned about the health. I know coming into the league, he was injured the whole year, so that sucked. That was a lost season. But he was healthy all year last year, and unfortunately that's something that happens sometimes, and it's annoying, and it instantly puts in our head that somebody is injury prone. I don't necessarily think that. Obviously, speaking to his size and weight, it's not prototype. I think that they drafted another running back for a reason. And like I said before, names matter more than they should. Guy's name is Tank Bigsby, for Christ's sake. It's in the name.
Yeah, we know what his role is going to be.
It's like his name is Tank. And then funny enough,
he literally does look like
Houston has another guy named Tank Dell who's tiny, who they just drafted. But anyways, like
it's too small for his body.
Who, Tank Bigsby or Tank Dell?
Tank Bigsby.
So like, I'm getting a sense of Travis Etienne is like the Ryan Matthews, and Tank Bigsby is the Mike Tolbert.
For
you know what I mean?
Younger fantasy football players, Andrew is saying Travis Etienne is DeAndre Swift and Tank Bigsby is
Jamal Williams.
Jamal Williams.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. That's a more – I know. I go back to my boomer times of fantasy. But, like, that was a big thing. It was like, geez, Ryan Matthews, he gets, like, almost 100 yards every game, but he never scores the touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then you got Mike Tolbert, who's got 7 yards on the day, but he's got 3 1-yard touchdowns. So I do feel like they brought him in.
That's a good call.
To spell ETN because they do need that hammer. And I don't think that Tank Bigsby is going to get 4 carries a game. I think he's going to be on the field, more. I think he's going to get anywhere between like 7 to 9. And I think he's going to be a bit of a thorn in the side of Travis Etienne. But Travis Etienne is going in the 3rd, 4th round. so that he doesn't come without question marks for a reason. So I don't foresee myself having any Travis Etienne because in the range that he goes, I just like other players more.
Okay.
Not necessarily just running backs, other players.
And I think that, that probably answers my next question for me. Yeah, I mean, the touchdown equity is a concern. And I did kind of notice they seem to like to throw around the end zone too. Or at least that was my general gut feeling. But let's just do the name thing just to kind of round it out, because I feel like, you're going to have him below a few guys, but this is the range for him. Travis or Najee?
I want Najee.
Yeah, because he has more ownership of that backfield and his volume. Okay. Travis or Aaron Jones?
I want Aaron Jones. I want the pass catching, and I want the explosive games he'll have. I mean, he's very feast or famine, but
he is feast or famine. For that reason, I actually would go Travis there personally. Okay. That's my personal feelings. I know you hate this guy, and I do too for different reasons.
I think I'm going to pick him, though. I think I know who you're going with. Go ahead.
You know what? You go ahead and guess.
James Conner.
That's hilarious. That was not what I was going to say,
okay.
But yeah, I would go with him over James Conner too. He's kind of cooked. Travis or Joe Mix?
I would still go Joe Mixon because I think the Bengals, we talked about this in another episode, and I tend to agree. I think they're going to begrudgingly roll him out one more season.
Yeah.
But that could be a good thing in fantasy because they don't care about his future health,
Here's I think a tough one for us. Travis or Jahmyr Gibbs?
That one is tough because I really like
incoming rookie, right?
Montgomery, and I like the offense. I think I'd go Travis there because I am not completely sold that Gibbs is going to be. Well, it's hard because the draft capital that they gave to him is a lot. So that's a tough one. I don't know. I feel like I'd slightly lean Travis. But it's very slight.
Yeah, I think I would go. I think I would probably go Travis too. But Jahmyr Gibbs, you know how we fantasy players do it. We overrate the upside. We overrate the unknown.
Excitement matters, and
so
the new guy comes with the excitement. Yeah.
All right, so the very last name game that I'll give you: Trevor Lawrence or Justin Herbert for this next season?
In a vacuum or ADPs included?
Give me, just give me in a vacuum, because I know that the ADP wise, probably Trevor is the better pick. But
yeah,
I want to know, in a vacuum, does Trevor Lawrence surpass the golden child of hair, Justin Herbert?
They're both pretty
the best
pretty Goldilocks over there. I'm going to say Herbert. It's going to be for one reason. It might surprise you. Kellen Moore. I think Kellen Moore going to the Chargers is going to make a big difference in
the
efficiency of Justin Herbert.
They needed better offense, I believe. I mean, I don't know, Kellen Moore, I mean, in terms of he's better than what they had. I'll agree with you there. He's certainly gonna help that offense.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. So are we wrapped on Jax? Do we want to talk about anything else there? I mean,
no, I think we should
flyer guy.
Let's put it this way. Let's see. What is of this entire division? Give me a sleeper. Even if we already talked about him, who's the player you're most intrigued of in terms of a sleeper range? And then give me your biggest bust as well.
Oh man, that's tough. Well, we already talked about the biggest bust. I think if Calvin's ADP really stays where he is, God, that's got bust written all over it. Like, and it's not his fault. We shouldn't be drafting him in the third round, but if that really happens, that has bust written all over it. The biggest sleeper. That's an interesting one. I'll be a homer. I'll say Alec Pierce. I've always liked his game. I loved what I saw from him last year. There's a lot of ifs that need to happen for him to really, really hit that sleeper status. But if A. Rich figures out a deep ball and they have an offense that really emphasizes what he's strong at, which is using his legs to threaten the front part of the defense, and then they have a play action where you can attack the back end, I think Alec Pierce has that type of upside in his arsenal. What do you think?
Yeah, I like the fit of what Alex Pierce does well to what we believe Anthony Richardson can do well, and that's hit a deep ball. You know, you don't need to be all that precise to be able to. You need to be precise, but he has the arm. He has the arm.
Yeah, he's got the arm for sure.
So
who's your bust sleeper?
So my sleeper, and I talked about it a bit. It's pretty much that. It's kind of a combo of John Mechie could be, but I'm still going to go Nico Collins. Nico Collins, for me, I think I don't know if you'd call him a sleeper.
Because he showed a little bit last year, but he's going to be a sleeper because Houston stinks.
Yeah, I think that Houston as a whole obviously is, well, their receiving core is getting undervalued by a lot. So yeah, Nico Collins for me, like he's my sleeper. And then bust, I'm going to go with the same team, but I am going to go with Travis Etienne. I think Etienne has a chance of being busting for just not having the level of opportunity that we're projecting. I can see that not working out as much where he is only getting 12, 13 touches a game when we're projecting him to get close to 20.
Yeah, that's look, and obviously I think that can happen to a lot of the running backs in that range. That's why running backs are always scary because I think that almost every team, especially the teams that are serious about competing, they want to have a committee. They don't want – Mike Vrabel is off in a corner of boomer football coaches by himself. And because he has, the ultimate physical specimen in Derrick Henry, I think almost every other team in the league is trying to figure out how they can have a 1-2 punch. So I'm fine with that.
How do you bring down a Sasquatch? It's kind of like, they can't bring him down.
It's different. Derrick Henry is the antithesis of Travis Etienne, the Bizarro World version. He's like the opposite. So, I think that's good. I think that's it. I think we've talked about this division.
So
it's Jacksonville at the top, and then a conglomerate.
So let's just to wrap it up. Okay, so we'll go first to worst of what we think the rankings are. So Jags up top. Who do you think is how do you think that division is going to fall?
The Jags up top. Tennessee. Tennessee is terrible for fantasy. But I think on a real football level, I think they're the second best team in that division because I think Vrabel is going to find a way to get them to be okay for most of the season until they finally realize that they need to bottom out and they throw Will Levis in there. So I think by virtue of having a veteran quarterback for most of the year and a decent roster, I think it's Tennessee. And then I think it's Indianapolis and then Houston.
Okay. I'm 100% in agreement there. So cool. All right, man. Let's wrap this up.
AFC South.
We're gonna go into the AFC West, but All right, and now we're back with the AFC West, man. This is a fun division.
Yes,
They've
it
got
is. It's not a fun division to rank necessarily, but it's a fun division.
it's a fun division. There's a lot of good fantasy players in this division for sure. And then a lot of not so good busts from last year, and we know about all that. Let's ride Broncos country.
Oh my God. And that's gonna be tough to talk about, but we're here. We're gonna do it. We have a marathon recording session for our friends, for the people. Just know that we're not afraid to do two-a-days, just like in real football. We're doing a two-a-day now.
Doing a two-a-day, man, because this season is creeping up on us faster than we realize. So here we are, man. So yeah, Broncos country, let's ride. We're starting there. Last place in division last year. Russell Wilson. Wow. How
the mighty have
pathetic. And the trade.
Finally let him cook, and he did a tasty mistake.
Oh, yes. Paper Mario reference. Love it. Something about the mistake, you got 1 HP and 1 FP, so it was like, not bad, not bad. But, like, he wasn't even, like, any FP at all. This guy, he was basically a dried shroom.
Yeah, he was a dried shroom. Yo, was this okay? And I know I'm trying not to be a prisoner of the moment, but like in terms of what we expected this offense to be and what it actually was, that differentiator, was this the biggest fantasy chair pull of all time?
I'd have to think back. Man, it was I remember this one because it was me personally that suffered. Maybe you call it a chair pull. I don't know what you'd call it. When I drafted Adrian Peterson like second overall and he didn't play the whole season because of like legal stuff.
Oh yeah, he beat his kid.
That hurt a lot.
Yeah,
I think I got hurt more than his kid.
But that's not an entire offense though. Literally everybody like overdrafting everybody on the Broncos, like let's flippin' ride. Non-ironically, right? Because that became an ironic phrase throughout the season.
Yeah,
non-ironically.
We wrote it into the ground. So a little fact about that and Russell Wilson. I think this did affect him, but I guess his like life coach passed away last year, like right before the season or something like that. So like that was the dude who kept his mind right. And he passed away. He was a good friend of his. So that kind of messed him up, I'm sure. How far does that go to make an excuse for him?
Fragile. It doesn't take much to push you over the edge.
Yeah, and now we saw Russell just be a complete shell of himself, and I don't believe that he's going to ever get back to prime Seattle level. He doesn't really run the ball anymore. That was a big part of his fantasy value. Doesn't do it. Doesn't have the same weapons. I am completely out on Sutton. I am just done.
Wow.
I'm done. I'm done with Cortland Sutton. Give me like a last round Tim Patrick. Like I'd rather do that. I'm fine with Jerry Jeudy as my wide receiver 3 if that's where I get him, but I don't want him any higher than that. And Javonte Williams is one of the biggest question marks there is in fantasy football right now.
Gosh. So why don't we start there? Because I think that I don't think there's any more that needs to be talked about with Russ. Like we're both in agreement that by himself, he has no fantasy value. The thing that matters about Russell Wilson is, can he get back to some semblance of his old self and support fantasy value on this team. That's the only thing that matters,
Yeah.
I think, for him. So
Yeah, he's a streaming quarterback at this point. That's where he's at.
yeah, he's not going to be drafted, or at least not drafted
Not
with
as a
kind of serious.
starter. No one.
Yeah.
If he's your starter going into week 1, then your team has some issues.
Oh, I
Better
know
be loaded else.
teams like that had some issues. I was one of those teams that had issues.
Yes. Yes, but don't feel bad because literally everybody fell for it. Everybody.
The biggest heist in history, Ocean's 11, Denver Broncos.
That shit was
Holes.
But yeah, so Javonte Williams, the running game, they're running backs, I guess. Where are you at with it, man?
Javonte, when fully healthy, is electric. And I think a big part of the Broncos cratering, which, they didn't look great before that. I grant you. I understand that. They looked bad and stayed bad. But Javonte was a huge part of what they were going to do. And him going down gave that offense no chance of figuring it out because they were rolling out some like cooked ass running backs trying to patch it together.
Mike Boone.
Right, Mike Boone.
Melvin Gordon was there for a few minutes.
Yep. Still cooked. So no, Javonte is great. And, I think the concern with him, of course, is what's he going to look like coming off this injury, right? Is he going to be 100% coming out of camp? Is he going to be like 60, 70%? I think the expectation is that he's going to play week 1. Is it? Am I wrong in that?
I haven't heard much about Javonte Williams, but at this point of the season, preseason, whatever, off season, you're going to hear a million different things. And it's like, dude, until I see the guy in pads playing like in an actual game where he can get tackled, I don't care what they say.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going to be ready for week 1 until they're not.
Yeah, and I think that look, I just did a little bit of Googling as we were talking here. Like, it looks like the thought is that he should be ready for week 1, but I'm with you, man. I don't like drafting running backs the first year after an injury. Like, you are a big fan of J.K. Dobbins. I'm a big fan of J.K. Dobbins. Neither of us touched him much, right, in fantasy drafts this year because coming off of a devastating injury, it just takes time. It takes time. And Javonte's injury, I think, was particularly ugly. So it takes time to get back. Let's just go ahead and do it. Let's just look at what his current ranking is and see if that's going to be an area of comfort for you. Like, so right now, Javonte, I think people are appropriately scared of Denver's potentially trash offense and him coming back from injury. Right now, he's being ranked behind the Alex Madisons, DeAndre Swifts, and ahead of Dalvin Cook, who currently doesn't have a team. So I think his ranking is probably appropriate. But as we get closer to the season and it looks like he's going to be ready, I have a feeling that his draft stock is going to rise. So give me like your expectations for Javonte and whereabouts you would be comfortable with him.
Okay, so real quick, apologies. Your feed was messing up a bit there. It seems to be a little bit better now. I heard most of what you said. I got the gist of it. Javonte, like where am I drafting him? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like right now his ADP is way down low. Like he's down there in like RB4 territory. I have a feeling that as we get closer to the draft and it's confirmed that he's ready for week one, I have a higher, real, true expectation of what Javonte is going to look like coming off this injury and where they should be targeting him.
Okay, so I can just say for me personally, I'm just out on Javonte. Like he'd have to really, really crater in a draft for me to look at him. Because I'm getting the impression that, like, yes, he is technically the RB1, but I really think that they're going to rely heavily on Samaje Perine. Samaje Perine is just your do everything pretty well guy. And there's nothing wrong with that in a backfield, you know? So he's not Samaje Perine's not a guy that I think coaching staffs really look at and they're like, hell yeah, we love Samaje Perine because of his talent. But I think they do love Samaje Perine because they know that he's not going to really miss a beat. He can do everything well enough. I think this injury was absolutely terrible for him because he tore like his ACL, all the CLs, right? LCL, ACL, meniscus, whatever, like everything. As explosive and electric as he is, man, it worries me that he's not going to get back to that this season and maybe even next season. We'll see. There's a lot of guys, unfortunately, that have gotten injured out of the league. And we hope for Javonte's sake and for fantasy football's sake, that's not the case. So I'm out on him. So I don't know how much that really answers your question because the range is like, I don't know, man, probably like 2 tiers below of what he's going right now.
Yeah. And so I'll tell you this. I don't share exactly the same feelings, but I share the same sentiment, if that makes sense. So, like, I think that the comp for Javonte this year is J.K. Dobbins last year. So, whatever J.K. Dobbins was to you last year, that's what you can kind of expect for Javonte. Slow start to the season. Is he going to play? Is he going to have a full complement of snaps? Back half of the season, I can actually see him being pretty good. But I don't draft players for the back half of the season. I draft them for the first half of the season.
Yeah.
So honestly, I'll tell you what, like if Javonte really falls to that like 4th or 5th tier of running backs, I'll probably take the flyer because I would hope and expect that at that point I have my starters pretty solidified. So then it's like I can afford to with him as like a running back that I'm going to rely on. So like I'd be fine with it if he really falls in the tier that he's at now, but I have a feeling that he's going to be, you know, in that first 4 rounds.
Yeah.
Electricness is just going to take over at that point. So I think we're both unfortunately out for injury reasons there. You spoke to the receiver room some. You don't like Cortland Sutton. Talk to me a little bit about that. Like why besides just Russell Wilson sucking, which I think is what a lot of people bad season came from, if we're assuming or hoping that Russ figures it out a little bit more this year, what particularly is it about Cortland Sutton that you don't like?
Well, tell you what, man. Let's do this real quick. Do you mind leaving and coming back? Because your feed is still like really getting messed up. And I'll jump on that once you come back.
Okay. Better?
Let's see. Should be.
Testing.
Okay, that looks better. For a bit, it was like it's kind of off. Hopefully that works.
Okay.
But real quick, let me see something for Sutton in terms of the wide receivers.
Okay.
So Sutton, let's see, where is Sutton?
I have his stats pulled up.
Let's see what range. Looking for his name, I'm not finding it. Okay, there it is.
Oh, he's down there.
43rd.
Down there.
Yeah, 43rd. Okay, Rashad Bateman, Quentin Johnson, Juju, Jacoby. Okay, I got it. All right.
Okay, and
So,
then for editing purposes, I'll do that again.
Ready? Yeah, so like Cortland Sutton. Why am I out on Cortland Sutton? His ADP right now he's kind of in that like just questionable wasteland, I guess, where like it's hard to find. To me, it's hard to find like paths for these guys to becoming like. Not everybody has to be a number one wide receiver, you know. Like you're not going to have that on your team. If you do, like, oh wow, you got amazingly lucky with your draft or whatever. We went wide receiver, and they're both great, and then you found a guy later, and he ended up being great, and whatever. Like it happens, but it's rare. So, like looking at his range, they've got him behind another guy who we will talk about. We will goes by the name of Kadarius Toney. But, you know, they've got like Jackson Smith and Jigba ahead of him. He's a third option on to Seattle, right? You got Brandon Cooks, who's the second fiddle to CeeDee Lamb. Then you got Cortland Sutton, okay? You've got Rashad Bateman, who's constantly injured, who's another guy that I could kind of put those two together. They're basically the same to me. I'm out on Rashad Bateman, which I know we kind of talked about another one. Quentin Johnston, who I think is not going to have a good rookie season. He's going to be kind of underwhelming. Jamison Williams, I like him, but he's suspended for six weeks. So, like, okay, whatever. This is the range that he's in. I just don't see.
It sounds like the fantasy community is in agreement with you. If he's
I don't see a path for him to really break out. You know, I think that he must have just gotten overrated a bit coming into the league. I don't know if that's the case, if we were enamored by his size, like maybe it's just one of those cases where he was misjudged coming in.
He started the season kind of looking like the number one. Like I remember first like 3 or 4 weeks, it seemed like he had the best rapport with Russ, and it looked like
it kind of looked like Tim Patrick did until he got hurt, because he got hurt early on, and he was like, nobody's excited about Tim Patrick, but like he's a part of this wide receiver room.
Take him over Court?
Not over him, but like I don't see a world. I can see Tim Patrick making it onto some of my rosters, and I can never see Cortland Sutton make it on my roster based on their ADPs.
Yes, agreed.
Right?
I'm with that.
That range is just like there's other players who I'm not exactly excited about, but I might be able to see a path for them to have a big jump. And I just don't, man. I lost. Simply put, I can't really quantify it as well as I'd like to. I I just lost faith in him. I have faith for Jerry Jeudy still.
Yeah, and
No,
this is a good segue because I think we're definitely in agreement on Cortland Sutton, and I think this offense for Denver, we can't say let's ride anymore because the let's ride hype train is over. I think like it was too bad that I can't have that kind of preseason expectations for them anymore. But maybe let's walk, right? Like I think it still can be better than crawling, which is what it was this past year. So if we're saying, okay, Russ and the Broncos are not good enough to support two relevant wide receivers, but maybe they can support one. Jerry Jeudy. Let's chat about him.
Jerry Jeudy is a guy I would take pretty much right at his ADP. Let's just say I don't like the other options around where he goes. The other options I like have been taken. I'm cool. I would take Jerry Jeudy. I believe in Jeudy. I think that he's a good receiver. I think he's got a lot of ability. He's very agile. He's proven to, have pretty good hands. His route running is solid. I can see him being the number one on that team. Russell, historically, he spread the ball around well. I don't know, man. Just thinking back to Cortland Sutton, everything I've seen, I'm just not that impressed.
Yeah.
So I know that's not the best way to answer it. It's just I don't have a lot of faith in this Broncos offense, their passing game anymore. I think their run game can have value. Like I said earlier, I like Samaje Perine. I like drafting him this year. Because if you're getting even a split back committee with Samaje Perine, that's fine as a 10th, 11th round pick for my RB4 or 5.
That's smart.
And
if you're drafting Javonte early, you damn well better overpay around for Samaje.
Yeah, and it could be one of those things where that might even be the worst outcome because now you're just committed to this running back backfield, this Denver backfield that is like, I don't know about you, but I freaking hate draft. Like, I don't like starting two running backs on the same team in a week.
No,
you've got Javonte locked in as your RB2, and then you feel like obligated to put Samaje into a flex spot. Like,
yeah, that's tough. I mean, I guess the only reason that I was thinking in my head is that, like, assuming that that they're going to bring Javonte on slowly, that you have a player that should get the lion's share of the work early on. But dude, I'm out on it completely. Like, I'll just bottom line it. Like, for me, it's kind of Jerry Jeudy and nobody else. I actually like Jeudy. I think that health has been really the only thing kind of holding him back. Like, he's a little bit boom or bust in terms of his production because I think he just barely missed out on 1,000 yards last season, but they kind of came in like 5 or 6 big games. I think that if you're going to hitch your wagon to any of these Broncos, I think that it's Jerry Jeudy because I think he's just got the talent that if you believe that the offense will bounce back, if you believe that Sean Payton really is the GOAT and is going to bring everybody back to their averages, I think Jerry Jeudy is the guy to target here. So that's what I would go with. I guess my conclusion on the Broncos is it can't be any worse. So let's just pray.
Yeah, and to my point on Samaje Perine, why that's another reason I like him is because Sean Payton's there, and Sean Payton has historically always had really good running games. Yeah. Like his fantasy running backs have always been like top 5 And that was, that was Kamara, but it was before that. And even during like Kamara's times where he was hurt and whatever, which hasn't been not a lot. He's been pretty durable, but like there's been other running backs that he's coached that have done really well.
Or soft suspended.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, just the question of Javonte's health is just the biggest caveat in this whole conversation. And it's a depressing reality for Denver's offense.
All right. So,
but I do want to mention that another value potentially, which like almost every other tight end, of the bottom of the barrel tight ends you can draft, Greg Dulcich at least has some athletic ability that he can get you a few extra yards after the catch. He's not just catch the ball and fall.
He was pretty good in stretches last year. You can do worse than Greg B if you're punting the position.
That's pretty much all I'm saying. And then for Javonte, I will say, okay, keeper leagues / dynasty leagues, Javonte's value is up more in those because if you believe in the talent and you believe he'll get back to health and you can get him at a value and he can stay on your team, okay, well that could potentially make your team go over the top. It felt like a dynasty startup kind of thing.
But going into the 2025 season, I'm going to be like assuming, oh God, I would hate to see this guy
healthy this year.
Yeah, but if he shows healthy for the back half of the season and looks fine, I would be back in. I would jump back.
Yeah, because he's going to have that baked in injury discount.
Yeah,
for the following year. So, yeah, but that's enough about the Broncos, man.
It's depressing. I will force you to do one more quick name game just since we've been doing that.
All right.
Jerry or Terry?
Give me Terry.
Okay. Jerry or Tyler?
Lockett.
Okay. Jerry or Pitty?
I'd rather have Judy.
Okay. Jerry or DJ Moore?
I'll take Judy.
Okay. I think that's fair. I like that range. I
still like Jerry Seinfeld more than all of them.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, we can do a power ranking of Jerry's in another episode that's not a marathon, but we can definitely do that because there are quite a few.
Jerry Seinfeld or Jerry from Tom and Jerry.
We ruined my Raiders blast, so I'm gonna do it again.
No raid. Okay, go ahead.
Now let's move on to the Raiders.
Just win, baby. Just have average quarterback play, baby.
Yes. Just Jimmy.
Just Jimmy. Gimme Jimmy. Another good quote there. If you like Better Call Saul.
Yep. I like
so
that.
Yeah, Jimmy G sucks. That's it.
He couldn't even be good with Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, or Bill Belichick. I mean, he had a few moments on the Patriots, and he had some good moments on 49ers. But wow, has this guy been blessed with just good looks and good luck in his career? My God.
I think it finally runs out this year.
Jimmy Garoppolo is so painfully average, and he really just needs to have that offense set up for him perfectly. Now, he's running into some more good luck because he has arguably the best wide receiver in football. I mean, for fantasy, no, not necessarily. He's up there. You can make that argument, though, that he's still one of the best. He is one of the best, but some people might even say he's still the best receiver in football in Devontae Adams.
Yeah, I think there's you're splitting hairs at the very top, right? Like whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I probably think pound for pound, especially age considered, that Justin Jefferson is that guy. But like,
Yeah.
Devontae's just an absolute monster.
Let's put it this way. If someone says to me Devontae Adams is the best receiver in the league right now, I wouldn't strongly argue against it. Let's just put it that way. I mean, I am on the Justin Jefferson train with you, but I'm not going to argue that hard against that.
Yeah. And so then, okay, with the Raiders, I think the fantasy conversation for everyone starts with fantasy's biggest darling last year, the dude that played the Hall of Fame game, got completely like dive bombed in every fantasy draft that happened after that, and then made everybody look like stupid idiots afterwards. JJ, how are we feeling? Like, what, like, do we feel like, because like, at least for me, I feel like his value boomeranged now. It was way too low last year comparative to what he should have been. And now I think maybe we overcorrected the other way. But what do you think?
I think he's actually sitting at a good ADP for him.
Okay.
Kind of similarly to Derrick Henry. Like, what did the team do to change his situation that he's not going to be the focal point of the team? I mean, okay, the only difference is like, yes, Adams is better than Burks, right? So Adams will still be featured, but like they're both going to be featured in that offense with nobody else that really comes to mind. I mean, to me, Jacoby Myers is going to be fine. He's not. I don't see Jacoby Myers being like really worth a pick because you've got to rely on the third option on the offense.
Yeah, no thanks. No thanks.
Jimmy G. Like, that's not what I want to be living and dying on. So, yeah, I think Jacobs is going to be heavily featured. Like, and he's a really good running back. He just is. He catches the ball enough. I think Jimmy G's tendency is to kind of like panic and dump the ball off. I see him doing that a lot. Josh Jacobs will be a beneficiary of that. So, yeah, I like where he's at. I'm not mad if I have to, like, let's put it this way. If I have the third overall pick and whatever, I take Jamar Chase or Cooper Kupp and it comes back around and Josh Jacobs is there, I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a possibility for sure. And I think the interesting thing about Josh Jacobs is that how like kind of unexciting, quote unquote, that he's been in his career. Like, he's been productive every year. And I think that, like, not looking it up, Andrew, how old do you think Josh Jacobs is?
I think he's like 27, 26, 27.
He's not 26 yet. So he had a younger breakout age than people really thought. And so I think that the perception around how old he is, I think is also kind of nerfing his fantasy value.
Yeah.
Now, I'll say this because I'm not going to completely 180 my take. I think Josh Jacobs, first and foremost, when we talk about fantasy values, we talk about tiers. So stop worrying about splitting hairs when you're doing a fantasy draft about what running back is ranked where. Oh, man, this guy's ahead of this or this guy's ahead of that. Like, when you do tiers, that's a cleaner way to look at it because at the end of the day, you're going to have to plant your flag on somebody.
Yep.
Don't drop down a whole tier. But if you feel great about Josh Jacobs, I'm not going to argue with you. Because, like, you're in the tier with Tony Pollard, with Nick Chubb, with Derrick Henry. Like, if you like him above those guys, like, I'm not going to argue with you. That's fine. They're in the same tier. Personally, I'd rather have Derrick, Nick Chubb, and maybe even Ramondre Stevenson over him. That's probably the toughest one for me, the toughest hair splitting there. But
Yeah.
I would take him over Tony Pollard, actually. And I know that, may not be as popular with people because I think people really want Tony to the moon. But I've seen Josh Jacobs as a bell cow back for 3 years. So yeah, I think that that's really the fantasy number one here that we need to talk about, and that we all would feel good about him as a RB1.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. Like Josh Jacobs, I said it earlier. I said it with Derrick Henry. You're looking for guys that you can win, that can win you a week single-handedly. Josh Jacobs could absolutely do that, which a lot of these top players in the first 2 rounds absolutely can. But this is why a guy like Justin Fields has moved up so much. This is why a guy like even Anthony Richardson is going to probably rise, because everyone's wanting to draft that guy. He's worth it if he can win you a week single-handedly.
Yeah.
And Josh Jacobs can absolutely do that. So
yeah,
I like him a lot.
Games. He's obviously the clear bell cow in his backfield, which we were worried about that last year. And now,
sorry, go ahead.
I said we were worried about that last year, him being the bell cow on his team, but that looks really, really bad in hindsight.
Yeah, we got duped by the coaching and some of their weird decisions, but like they also didn't really do anything to push him out. I think the only thing that's just true of, running backs in this market, he's franchise tagged.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that maybe you could say you're worried about. But running backs, unfortunately for them, they just don't have the leverage to take a year off because they're not getting a long-term deal. It's pretty much going to be like a year-to-year thing for a lot of them after their rookie contracts expire.
Running backs in the NFL don't have leverage, period, full stop. And it's very sad because of their relative importance to, first of all, selfishly to us in fantasy, but also in the grand scheme of the NFL. Like, it's like, okay, Josh Jacobs is going to be not even 27 before his second contract, and I don't think he gets it on the Raiders. If they can do it to Dalvin Cook, they can do it to you, bro. Just remember that.
The Giants are doing it to Saquon right now.
Exactly. So Devontae Adams, I think, is the next guy, obviously, that is worth talking about. And I don't think anybody's ever going to question that he's a wide receiver 1.
No.
But I think there's a big question about where he actually falls now, because he went from Aaron Rodgers to Derek Carr. And now he's going from Derek Carr to Jimmy G. So Devontae, that's interesting. Like, is he the type of receiver that is just fully quarterback proof? It does not matter. He's going to get targeted like a mofo and he's going to be great for fantasy? Or do you see a potential drop?
I am giving my vote of confidence. I am not worried about Devontae Adams one bit because I don't feel like Derek Carr is really. I think Derek Carr played like ass last year. Go look at some advanced stats and you'll see he did pretty much suck. And Jimmy G, while he is probably in the same tier of Derek Carr, they have different strengths, different weaknesses, I guess. I don't care. I think that Devontae is so freaking good. I mean, you saw it last year, and it's incredible. How in the hell does Devontae Adams get so wide open?
I
mean, it is nuts sometimes when you see like nobody's around him. Like he is that good. Your third string practice squad guys can complete passes to him because he gets that open. And he gets open deep a lot
is
too.
going to be entering his age 31 season. Does that mean anything to you?
No, because his game is not necessarily predicated on pure athleticism. It's technician level. And like he's athletic still, don't get me wrong, but my God, he is just like such a technician that I do not care. To me, Davante Adams is QB proof. And guess what? When the team is losing, which they will be losing more often than they're winning, especially in that division, he's going to demand the ball. Like he is going to have some Odell Beckham moments on that sideline. He's like, I didn't want to really play for this team after Derek Carr left anyway. And now you better throw me the freaking ball, Jimmy, or I am going to just freaking burn your locker on fire and like throw you in. Like he's going to demand the targets. He is going to get 12 to 15 targets a game. Like no joke. I really feel that way.
Oh my goodness grief. Derek Carr targeted him 180 times last year.
Which is absurd. So it'll probably be less, but I just don't care. Davante Adams is the real deal, and he's gonna be great. Like I'm questioning, should Tyreek Hill really be above him in ADP? Like,
let's play the game.
It's questionable.
Let's play the game. Okay. Steph Diggs or Davante Adams?
I'm going to take Steph because that offense and the deep balls from Josh Allen.
CeeDee Lamb, Davante Adams.
Davante.
AJ Brown or Davante Adams?
Adams.
Tyreek Hill or Davante Adams?
See, that one's close to me, even though Steph is below Tyreek Hill, and I take Steph. That one's close to me, man. As of right now, I'm going to take Davante because I think that Tyreek isn't quite as Tua is a lot more fragile, so I'm a little bit more scared of that one. And Tyreek is also like potentially has legal issues going on, and it probably will amount to nothing. If I had to guess, it probably will amount to,
but enough to break the tie for you.
It's very close because obviously the explosion potential of Tyreek is second to none. But there's a bit of bias, I guess, because I just like Davante more than I like Tyreek on a personal level. So,
and dude, like I'm with you. Like, you know, I doubted Davante Adams to my great sadness last year. I'm not going to do that again. The Raiders, I think nothing really changes. I think Jimmy G is a downgrade from Derek Carr, to be honest. I really do think that it is a downgrade to the offense. But in terms of the Raiders being a two-man fantasy show, they're still a two-man fantasy show. Hunter Renfrow, PPR monster still. I think this dude, he's not just a fucking sideshow. Like, he's really good at getting open. He is that guy. So, yeah, I think his volume and touchdown efficiency is not going to be that great. But in terms of being like a flex guy in our league or like a legitimate wide receiver 2 option in a pure PPR, I still think Hunter Renfrow can be that guy. I don't know what you think.
I think they kind of brought in Myers to play a lot of that role too, where I think that they have a bit of a redundant skill set, and they paid Myers. And I think Renfrow is, believe it, and not to do with talent. He's great at what he does, but I think he has a potential to be like a cut candidate for them.
No kidding.
And that's just my guess. Yeah, and I also think we can't forget about Michael Mayer, who they just drafted.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, rookie tight ends. I get that's not what you're targeting in fantasy football.
Austin Hooper is still technically in front of him.
Okay, and that's okay. You could say that. That's fine. But like those guys are still gonna. I think those guys will eat into it because they're both going to be intermediate, short to intermediate possession receivers, whether it's Hooper, Meyer, a combo of both. Like, I'm pretty much out on Hunter Renfrow as a fantasy option.
Well,
Can't do it for me.
And what you said does make sense. I do think that some of the middle of the field stuff can be eaten up, and obviously Hunter Renfrow, part of what made him great was his great rapport with Derek Carr, right? Is he going to have that same rapport with Jimmy G? Who knows? Like, I feel like those memes that go around out there that like Jimmy G and Derek Carr, it's like the meme of that guy getting the same exact shirt that he's wearing. Like, I've seen those around. Like, no, they're not exactly the same. I do think Jimmy spreads it out a little more. So I can feel that. I think Hunter is still good enough that he will carve out a role. But you could be right, and I'm coming around to that he may not have anywhere near the same volume and value that he had last year. So I'm with you there. Michael Mayer, super exciting prospect. I think he's a 2025 guy. Because I just think it takes a long time to learn the tight end position at the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, you have to do it all.
The argument for that is just that he did come in as a very mature tight end. Like, he understands the position pretty damn well. That's the only – I still don't want him because he's a rookie. I still would give it a year.
Yeah, you're right about that, though, because it is rare, right? Like, what is our big problem with Kyle Pitts is that he can't really play tight end the way that you need to play it at the NFL level. Like, you be able to – it's actually pretty fucking crazy what you have to do as a tight end in the NFL. One snap – you can be blocking freaking Khalil Mack. And then the next snap, you have to route up Jalen Ramsey. And then the next snap, you have to crack on Luke Kuechly or whatever. Like, that's crazy that you have to do all three of those things. Yeah,
that's one of the most diverse positions in the NFL for sure.
And they don't get paid as much as receivers. Interesting.
No, but the explosion potential typically, unless your name is Travis Kelce, isn't really as much. I mean, the thing about Travis Kelce that makes him so good, and we'll talk about him. I guess I'm jumping ahead. Yeah, I'll wait on that.
Yes.
So anyways, dude, like, I'm done talking about the Raiders.
Yeah. So it's a two-man show.
It's a two-man show.
And I guess that in a roundabout way, we both now agree that the value of their two-man show has not changed very much.
Nope, not to me. Jacobs goes up a little bit. Devontae goes down very slightly, and that's it.
I'm marginally lower on those guys than you are, but not enough to really have a whole damn debate about it. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good here.
Okay. So everybody's favorite off-season team, the Chargers.
They are like, if there's a off-season Super Bowl, they win the damn off-season Super Bowl every year. Like, this is it.
Yeah,
it's all gonna click.
They've been such a talented roster for so long, and they just never seem to really put it all together. It's like, man, I'm kind of hoping that Brandon Staley gets fired this year and Kellen Moore can end up being a head coach for them. Whatever, we'll see.
Well, I hope he just fixes their boring ass offense is really what I hope.
Yeah, and like, I'm not about Quentin Johnston. I just think that he's more athlete than receiver.
Yeah. But dude, like, that's the other thing, and that's why, like, I do have to slightly disagree with. I don't think we really even disagree, but disagree with the phrasing that you used. I think that the perception of their roster is better than their actual roster. Like, dude, Keenan Allen is legitimately a great receiver, but he's older. And I think Mike Williams is overrated. I am not a big Mike Williams guy. I think that, like, he has ability, but I also have always kind of put him in that category that I think he's more of an athlete than a receiver, kind of similar to what you just said about Quentin Johnston. So I think if Keenan Allen stays healthy, I think he's the best safety valve for Herb. I think Herb is great, so he's going to always elevate what he has around him. But like, dude, when you compare his receiver room to Burrow's receiver room, come on.
Yeah. I mean, Burrow pretty much has the best receiving core.
Yeah.
You can argue
but that's
what
what
other teams, but what's that?
But that's what I'm saying about roster wise, is that it's not as great as I think people talk about it.
Yeah. So like, I think the only other receiver room you can even debate is maybe Miami.
Right.
But like, yeah, so he doesn't have the same weapons, but he's got good weapons. And I'm with you. Mike Williams is very underwhelming throughout his career. He's constantly hurt, constantly just disappearing acts throughout games. And like, you know, he's pretty much a boomer bust player throughout his career as well.
And then randomly, like he will have some amazing moments. Like some of those contested catches he makes are redonkulous.
Sure, he has ability, but he just doesn't have consistency. And you know, we mostly talk about redraft season long leagues, and that's, you know, he just sucks for that. He just kind of like he drains your team more than he helps because
Mike Best Ball Willie.
He's fantastic. Best ball. If you like best ball, go out and get that guy in the 4th round and, you know, or 5th round, whatever it is, and enjoy the 3 or 4 spike weeks, but then just know that it's kind of all you're getting. So I'm so out on him. And Keenan Allen is like the most boring, take your medicine 4th round pick. But you know what? He's a good 4th round pick.
Yeah, and he's, I mean, because he kind of has, they have very different games. Very different games. But he's like Mike Evans in the regard that if he's healthy, you know what he's going to give you. If he has a healthy year, you know what you're going to get from Keenan Allen, which is
100 catches, basically. And
probably not a ton of touchdowns.
Yep. I mean, he's a super possession guy. Yeah. But those guys are very valuable, especially if you're playing any form of PPR, as you should be.
And at this point in his career, he's like that, right? Because I think younger Keenan Allen had some downfield juice, but at this point in his career, he's a possession receiver. Mm-hmm. So to talk a little bit about that and try to actually put it in more helpful context, talking about, I think we're both out on Mike Williams, so I don't even think I really care to talk about
Mike Williams is just
take him
where I want to be. So, like, just real quick on Keenan Allen. Obviously, he was hurt last year. He played in 10 games. He still had 89 targets, 66 receptions. Every other year, when he really, really established himself in 2017, he's had reception totals, and this is before even Herbert. So this would have been what Phillip Rivers era, I guess. Mm-hmm. 102. This is receptions, not targets. Receptions. Well, you know what? Let's just do targets because that's better to quantify. So targets: 159, 136, 149, 147, 157. He maxed out.
That's consistency.
He actually, his rookie year, he actually got 8 touchdowns. But then beyond that, and his rookie year was just an anomaly because he had 104 targets, 8 touchdowns. But not anomaly, but for his career, right? So 2017 was 6, then 8, then 6, then 6. Ooh. And in 2020 he had 8.
Yep, big year.
6, and then last year at 10 games he had 4. So chances are you're going to get 6 to 7 touchdowns, and you're going to get roughly 1,000 to 1,100 yards for a 4th round wide receiver 2. You're not upset with that. It's just not exciting.
Well, here's the craziest thing, Andrew, because a 4th round wide receiver 2, yes, like you're right, that's decent production. But it's interesting because, like, without the names, that sounds reasonable. But the names in that range, because of how great receivers are now, because we have to, again, Keenan Allen's been in the league for like 10 years. The receiver position and what we expect out of the receiver position has changed in 10 years. So some of the names this guy's going around, T. Higgins, DK, Amari, Devontae Smith. Where are you taking him in that group?
Let's look at let's just go ahead and look at, I'm going to look at DK's stats. Just to like see if is he just a more exciting Keenan Allen? Not really, because he's not the same level of reception guy. But like, okay, so DK has had 100 or more targets his entire career. He's going into his 5th year. He scored more touchdowns, so I guess DK should go ahead because DK has 100 targets his rookie year, then 129, 2 years in a row, and then 141 last year. Last year, his touchdowns were down a bit. His rookie year was 7 touchdowns, so it's 7, 10, 12, and then last year was 6.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would say that DK, yeah, it makes sense that he's more of a red zone target. He's just a much bigger physical guy. So, yeah, I guess I'd take DK ahead of him, but
he's 25.
He's younger. He's not been injured quite as much. Keenan Allen seems to battle some kind of injury every year, even if it doesn't keep him off the field, except that one year where we like tore his spleen or something weird like that.
Yeah, I think that
but
now.
Let's just say it goes like this, right? So let's just hypothetically put together a first 4 rounds.
Yeah.
So let's just say I have the 3rd overall pick. I take Jamar. Comes back around, 2nd round. I get, I don't know, who would you say? Would you say
Jacobs? We use that.
Jacobs. All right, let's just say Jacobs lasted that long, and I got good value with Jacobs. Okay, so Jacobs comes around. That's a nice start. Then I get Najee in the 3rd, beginning of the 3rd. And then it comes back around, and Keenan Allen is sitting there at the bottom of that 3rd, 4th tier, whatever it is.
3rd tier.
3rd tier, and he's like the one of the last ones in that 3rd tier. I'm like, okay, this is a fantastic start because I have my super stud at receiver. Then I have my safe reception guy as my wide receiver 2, who really should give me a good baseline. And then I've got my super stud running back and a volume play guy who's been kind of inefficient, but at least I'm getting volume with Najee. I should get that. Mike Tomlin doesn't suddenly change his ways. Like, no, I'm very happy with that start.
Yeah, you're right. That's reasonable. I guess for me, he is the very last player in that 3rd tier. If everyone else is gone, because tier 4 is all the question mark guys.
Yeah.
Tier 4 is, okay, Amari Cooper's great. What's going to be happening with Deshaun? Chris Godwin, new quarterback, not so sure. Debo, new quarterback. Calvin Ridley, we talked about that.
Yeah.
DJ Moore, new quarterback. All those guys are questions. So Keenan, to me, is the very last guy in that 3rd tier.
And I'm with you 100%. That makes sense, and I'm not mad to draft him.
Yeah. No, we're good.
I feel like he's going to have a very, like, it's like at the shooting range, right? When you shoot the tight circle, you get the same spot every time. I feel like that's going to be Keenan. Like, his ADP should just barely move because I think most people feel the same way about him. It's like he's just take your medicine, wide receiver 2.
I think we have the best analogies for fantasy. Aim small, miss small.
Yeah. I mean, that's Keenan, and it's like, you're not going to win a marksman award with him, but you're going to be consistent. So,
and then the very next tier after that, you're shooting clay pigeons. You might miss. They're tough. It's not easy.
Exactly. So yeah, man, I mean, okay. So we agree on that. And then do we care about any running back besides Eckler?
No, we do not. And the funny thing is that, I mean, you remember early in the offseason, Eckler looked like he was like maybe a cut guy. or, you know, a trade guy.
The contract, once again, contract situations.
Yeah, because, you know, dude, all he's done is freaking dominate. And it's so annoying that it's like you can do nothing wrong and it doesn't matter because, you know, your position as a starting running back is threatened. But the good news with Eckler is he's still awesome. He had his best season ever last year. And there is no one in that room that can threaten him. Josh Kelly, Isaiah Spiller. There's no one to threaten him.
These are just names that we know because they've been around.
Yep.
But they just have never been able to usurp him. And the crazy thing is, I don't know if you know this, you probably do, but Eckler was an undrafted free agent, dude.
Dude, like, that's great. I remember that.
He's this generation's Arian Foster.
I knew that he was low. I didn't remember that he was completely undrafted. I knew he wasn't like a highly drafted guy, certainly.
Undrafted.
But I remember those years with Melvin Gordon where it was like, you know, I think it was like 2018-ish, like 2019. It was like, damn, every time this guy touches the field, he kind of looks better. Like, and like I was a Melvin Gordon owner at the time, so I was in denial. So I was like, no, like Melvin's still the guy. He's still number one. And then every game that I was watching, I was like getting more and more depressed. Like, fuck, he does.
I feel like Melvin Gordon is kind of a low key bust for the NFL. Like I can't say bust because he wasn't completely
he was good,
but he just was because the Chargers drafted him like mid-first round.
Yeah,
you know, I think he was like the 15th overall pick or something like that, 17th, something like that.
Eckler is so amazing that he made Melvin Gordon look bad, and Melvin Gordon has had a good NFL career. Maybe not like returned the LaDainian Tomlinson level value that they thought they were going to have with him. But he's had a very good NFL career. Eckler's just incredible, man. His wiggle, his pass catching ability, which is where he made most of his money early on in his career. And then he gave middle fingers to all the haters out there that said he couldn't be a hammer. He couldn't be a between the tackles guy. By the way, he's one of the freaking motherfuckers that said that, by the way. He was one of the people that did say that he was going to struggle around the end zone himself. And he ended up with how many touchdowns last year? It was double digit at least.
Rushing touchdowns? I think he probably had over 20 total.
He has 13 on the ground, brother.
13. And then how many did he have receiving?
And 5. So, yeah, almost
18.
20.
Okay. But the year before, I think he got 20. If you're getting at least 18 touchdowns out of your running back, you're pretty friggin' happy.
So
that's the thing too. I talked about it a little bit before. Like, it's not just about speed it's also like you have to have the vision and just the feel for the game, and he has that. That's why Arian, as I said, he's this generation's Arian Foster, because Arian Foster was not spectacular specimen in any way, but he just knew how to play football at the highest level.
And you know, Eckler's twitch speed, I think, is elite. So if you could point to because his combine numbers were pretty, they were fine, but for a running back his size, pretty generic.
Mm-hmm.
But his short area speed and his I don't know if they did the cone drill back in the day when he did the combine, but I'll bet you if they did those shuttle drills and those short area quickness type of measurements, he has to be elite in that regard. So he's awesome. He's going to get drafted in the top 3. We don't need to have
it depends on your format, but he should be a top 5 pick. I mean, I understand on some PPR level that you've got Justin Jefferson, you've got Jamar Chase, and you've got Cooper Kupp.
But he catches freaking balls too.
He does. That's one of those things where he should not go outside of the top 5. I think it's like him going outside of the top 5 is like, why? He's especially in any kind of PPR league. Anyways, we know we can gush about Eckler all day. Everybody knows he's a freaking stud.
He is the first running back on the board to me, like if McCaffrey and Justin Jay are gone, I won't be in this position really in our league, but if McCaffrey and Justin Jay are gone, I am putting a hand over my eyes on every other position, and I'm taking Eckler. That's how high on him. I freaking love this guy.
Yeah, he's great. So yeah, about the rest of the Chargers, like I like Herbert a lot this year.
Other Chargers?
I like Herbert a lot this year. I think that Herbert had that injury and he didn't run as much. It was his foot. I think it was his foot he hurt. Some kind of lower extremity. And his rushing was down a bit, which helps. It helps his fantasy value some, even though he's not a prolific runner. But he has helped the offense stay on the field, which is a big deal in fantasy because you're getting more attempts. You're getting more chances at a big play or a touchdown, right? So
yeah, Herbert, I think, is a perfect example of what you're saying, that it's a functional runner. You can't consider him a running quarterback because he doesn't do it enough, but his running ability keeps plays alive, which supports his passing ability.
It keeps the drive going, which means there's a better chance for the offense to score fantasy points. So that's important. And I do feel like he had a bit of a down year as a passer, which will come up a bit. So I see him similarly to seeing like he's like a poor man's, not that poor, but a little bit less rich Joe Burrow. That's it. I'd still take Burrow above him, but of those elite pocket passers, like I like Herbert this year, and I think that he's got the weapons, he's got the safety net. Gerald Everett's still on the team.
Yep.
He's a good pass catching tight end. He's one of those flyer tight ends, like most are.
He'll end up being in the top 12, but that's the trouble with tight end, right? Is that
top 12 doesn't mean much at that position.
Fluctuate.
Yeah. One touchdown makes a huge difference in tight ends. So dude, let's talk about the Super Bowl winning team here. Thank you for winning. Thank you for beating the Eagles, by the way, Chiefs.
Yes. I will say just one very, very last thing on the Chargers. Like none of my like meh feelings around the Chargers are any fault of Justin Herbert. I love Herb, man. Like watching him play, he's one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch play. And, potential spicy take, like I don't know how spicy you would even think this is. You can judge that, whether it's a Carolina Reaper or, just a Taco Bell hot sauce. But I think in a vacuum, he's a better quarterback than Burrow. I think just in a pure vacuum, Burrow, you got the mentality aspect of it. Who knows how to measure that? Burrow, I think, has a much superior team. So, of course, his team's success and his success is going to be better for that reason. But just like pure arm talent and the throws that I see them make, like I might take Herbert in an NFL redraft. It's close, right? I love Burrow too. I'm not trying to slander the man, but that's just how much I love Justin Herbert. Just as a side note.
Yeah, I think the big difference in their fantasy values is just the fact that Burrow has Chase and Higgins, that like Chase especially, who can score anywhere from the field. Like that makes it where his stats get elevated, where Herbert doesn't have that luxury.
Yes.
That's the only thing.
And that's the hard thing with quarterbacks that don't have big rushing yard ability, because you have to hit 40 touchdowns to really be like an elite quarterback now. Yeah. And that's hard to do unless you have a freaking stacked team like Brady had in Tampa Bay his first year.
And that's also why Tua is even as high as he is, because he's got two guys that can score touchdowns on any given play. I mean, really more if you add like their running backs that are super fast.
Yeah, isn't that wild that like we think of Tua maybe 2 tiers behind Justin Herbert, but because of the team construct, it's conceivable that Tua could have a better year.
And it's really just because he's had health problems and Joe Burrow hasn't.
Yeah.
Well, besides he tore his ACL. That was in college, right?
Yep.
I remember. Yeah. But anyways, dude, the Chiefs.
Yes.
I'm gonna make this pretty quick because my wife needs me. But
yeah, we had quite a marathon, and honestly,
yeah.
I think we pretty much know what's up with the Chiefs.
Once again, like you said it about the Chargers, or I'm sorry, the Raiders. It's a two-man team for the most part. Like, it's Mahomes, it's Kelsey, which we don't even have to talk about those guys. Everybody knows how great they are. Kelsey I will say one thing on Kelsey. Don't worry about the age because the guy is so nuanced and just has great hands and he's getting schemed up in the red zone all the time. The chemistry with Mahomes, everything there, his athleticism doesn't even matter. He's so damn good at football and so nuanced with the angles he takes. Dude, the guy's a stud. He's going to continue to be a stud. That's it.
If he continues to stay healthy, people are going to keep preying on his downfall. He's old. He's gonna show up washed. That's not going to happen as long as he stays as a healthy individual, which I think he will. He's on a GOAT trajectory of tight ends.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say one thing too about drafting him. Unless I am at the back of the turn, he will never be on my team because the opportunity cost for me is too much for that tight end. That's it. Even in tight end leagues, it says, man, it hurts my heart to not draft a Saquon or a Bijan.
Are people taking him top 5?
There are some people who will take him 101 because they love the guy and because he's the guy at tight end.
That is a luxury from a team building standpoint. I will say, one of my few championships that I've won in fantasy was because I paid the premium for Travis Kelce, and I realized I was like, dude, it was a 12-man league for context.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, honestly, I don't feel like my team is that good. Like, my team was not that good. But, dude, I was crushing people at tight end. Like, Travis Kelce was like, it was like a 30-7 differential.
Yeah, it's nuts. That advantage is insane. But, man,
you pay up. You have to pay up.
You pay up, and if, God forbid, anything happens to him, your team is just hurting. So let's quickly hit on this. Like I said,
is good at football.
The rest of the team is so nebulous, man. Like, people are placing their bets on Isaiah Pacheco. Okay, well, he's the hammer.
If he stays as the only running back, you should. But what's your sense of that? Do you think that they're a Dalvin Cook player? What do you think about that running back room?
I think the running back room is it's hard to judge. I think Pacheco's going to be your main runner. You've got McKinnon, who had a fantastic run at the end of the year. He's going to be involved in passing downs, of course.
Don't fall for it. Don't fall for the circle jerk. Don't do it,
circle
boys.
Jerk. You've got CEH in the background, looming in the shadows, ready to take snaps. You've got some other guy
to DNP, okay? Because that's what's going to happen to him. He's gone. I'm sorry. I loved CEH coming out, but people when people show you who they are, you got to believe them.
Right. So that doesn't, and that may be true of who he is as a player, but he's still there. And if he's not cut on, he's gonna, which I don't see why they'd cut him. I believe he's still on his rookie contract, right? So whatever, he's depth. He's basically free depth for them. So who knows, man? That, and then they don't even really run the ball to score,
right?
Which is why Kelsey scores 15 touchdowns a year.
Well, they run it with Kelsey.
Yeah, or they do some weird Kadarius Toney thing.
You gotta before we go, you gotta talk about KT. You gotta talk about young Joe.
Last thing I'll say, I'm gonna quickly go over this because I really need to get going. But wide receivers, the only one that I even want to take a shot on at all is Sky Moore.
Agreed.
Once again, another second-year receiver. I don't care that much about Rashee Rice. He may prove me wrong, whatever. KT is just not very good receiver. He doesn't win a lot of his routes. He's a gadget guy. They're going to use him in weird spots, and you're never going to know when to start him. That's it. He is going to be
big games from time to time, but just not predictable.
Not predictable, and to me, based on his personality, he's always a threat to get suspended. Even though it hasn't happened yet, his injury history is extensive. Whether it's real or fake, I don't know. He's scumming on the Giants for no reason right now, which I don't really care about. Whatever, but that's just he's immature, and he's also just not that good a receiver. He thinks he's way better than he is. So, Chiefs, you're gonna pay pretty high for Kelsey and gonna pay pretty high for Mahomes, and everybody else is just good luck. Maybe they work out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's perfect. We won't even play the name game because, to be honest, it really doesn't matter because their main two fantasy guys. Suck it up and do. I do personally, if Pacheco ends up being the guy, which I feel like they're going to get one of these veteran RBs. I just feel like, why wouldn't they if they're such a threat to go get another Super Bowl? But if Pacheco ends up being the guy, dude, I just want a piece of that offense, and I don't think his fantasy cost is going to be crazy prohibitive. So, I like it from that perspective. And the receivers, I'm exactly with you, Andrew. Sky Moore and everybody else MVS is just going to get a couple bombs here and there. Kadarius Toney is going to sweeps and doing whatever. If there is any receiver outside of Kelsey that has an opportunity to be the number 2 receiver, quote unquote, behind him, then probably it's Sky Moore. But honestly, they're just going to keep doing the Chiefs thing that they always do, which is spread the ball around, be awesome. Patrick Mahomes is a wizard. None of those things are breaking news.
I'll say about their running backs real quick is Pacheco and McKinnon are low enough in the ADP. If you want to take a shot, whatever. You never know. But hey, guys, I got to get going.
Whew.
Peace out. Been a long episode, a good episode. And next time we talk, we'll be talking about the NFC. So once we get to that East, I'm going to go hard on those Giants. All right, Paul. I'll see you soon, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you for listening.
Life and Liberty. Boom.
Later.
See you guys.